I'd just like to use this as proof that Matt Key is a disruptive force on this show. Actually managed to get through an opening quietly for the first time ever. That happened.
A solid fact, actually.
There we are. God damn it, Matt. Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday Club. My name is Taliesin Jaffe. With me is, of course, as always, Amy Dallen. And we have a special guest, Joelle Monique, coming in to talk to us and taking Matt Key's wonderful space.
I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for coming.
Dude, you guys were like Batman, and I was like, what else would I be talking about tonight? This Batman. Is perfect. I'm so happy.
Oh, so, and yes, and if you have not figured out what our conversation today is going to be about, we're talking about, actually, we're talking about the giant circle that is, the donut that is Gotham, but we're removing the bat-shaped hole from the center of it.
Which isn't that how Gotham is better anyway?
It is. I mean, like, I was thinking about this. I'll do a little intro.
Yes, hello.
I was really thinking about this as a comic book reader, especially. I was a very late comic book reader. Actually, oh, yeah. Do we do that first or next?
Do you want to do the theory, or do you want to go in? Because we are going to have this conversation.
We have to do this.
Yeah.
We should just start this.
How did you get into comics?
Okay.
So introduce yourself to our audience, and how did you get into comics?
Hi, I'm Joelle Monique. I'm a pop culture critic. I got into comics exactly a decade ago on Free Comic Book Day of this year.
No way.
Whoa.
Yes. I'm only 10 years in. I was a freshman in college, and my roommate was like, comic books. I know you love Batman. Why aren't you reading them? I'm like, are those still a thing? And they're like, oh my God.
You and a lot of people.
Get yourself together. Well, okay, so the backstory of that is I grew up in a very small town where these two wonderful lesbians owned a bookstore, right? Now, comic books, not books to them. So I was reading a lot of historical fiction, a lot of books way beyond my age range, because they were like, she reads, like, voraciously, like, here are books. But nobody ever put a comic book in my hands, and I just didn't know. I wasn't going into, they had like a little card shop where kids would buy like Pokemon cards and things, but that wasn't what I was into, and I just didn't even think that there would ever be a space for me in comics. I was just really into Batman the Animated Series, obsessively watching it over and over and over again. So that was kind of how I got in. And then we went to Free Comic Book Day, and I bought $100 worth of comics, and I'm like, that's not how you're supposed to do it, but here we are. So the very first comic I actually purchased was Neil Gaiman's Batman Rest in Peace.
Ooh.
Yes. So that gives you a
Whatever
tone
happened
of the
to the
things
Cape
I'm into.
Crusader or the Grant Morrison Rest in Peace?
It was that whole, like, I think the first 2 or 3 issues were out of that. It was like a 5-issue run, something like that, and they were going back and forth, I think, and working on them. So I think I bought 2 of the books that day, if I'm not mistaken.
We're gonna have to talk about that one.
But I was getting like really into that series, and then shout out to Chicago Comics in Wrigleyville, which, you know, until I got here was the only comic book store that was ever worth anything. They had like women behind the counter. They were like, give you good recommendations based off TV shows you watched in case you were new. They still have that lovely energy. You should go visit them if you're in the area. But they, like, the coolest comic book store I ever had is I bought the first omnibus for Sandman. Because like Neil Gaiman obsessed, and I was like, this is beautiful, so great. I had like my first adult job, and I'm like, I'm gonna buy it. And then I came back the next week to buy the second part, and they were like, oh, well, you know, we have the whole entire first print issue of the series. I was like, no, you don't. They're like, yeah. I was like, but there's no way I could afford it. They're like, it's $250. I was like, like, I can't afford it today. And they were like, okay, we'll hold it for you. They held that thing for a month till I could get the money together to purchase the entire Sandman original print series. So I have all the individual comics now. It's the only thing, I refuse to separate it. I've been on my last dime. People are like, just sell your collection. I'm like, I will die. It's the best thing ever.
Bury me with my Sandman.
Exactly. So that's my introduction to comics.
So you're from Chicago?
Yes.
Oh, I've been to Chicago. I'm told by my friends who live there it is the greatest city in America 3 months out of the year.
You know what? When it's not cold, it's literally the best. And I left because of the snow. I couldn't do it anymore. I said, one more winter will kill me.
The rest of the year, my friend says he has a very nice apartment.
Dude, August through, really like July through early November. You're like, my God, all the walking, like great city transit, like it's so great. And then the cold comes, you're like, I want to die. How do we do this every year? There's ice everywhere. Nobody asked for this. I miss it every day, but also I would never go back.
No, snow. Once snow is no longer in the cards, it's kind of changes life.
Global warming, I'm rooting for you. No.
We feel you, Chicago? I'll go with that one.
Oh, my God.
So then you ended up out here, and you found a new local eventually.
I did. I found Amy's store, and it was great because she would just let me come in and talk to her for hours about nothing. She would be like, are we just going to talk on the thing? It'll be so much fun.
It's technically working.
It's what's great about a comic book store. Is that there's always 5 people who don't work there who, like, maybe they go and, like, pick up food for everyone who does work there, but other than that, they're just standing there with weird opinions the entire day. It's great.
Lots of them. And it's so great because, like, your store, like, so many people come in. Like, I met the voice actor for Luke in, oh gosh, which video game? Battlefront. Star Wars Battlefront. He's in there all the time. I've met Patton Oswalt like twice, and they're like, "Oh my God, like comedy legend. What's even happening?" And
Patton Oswalt is a patron saint. He's in every comic store in LA all the time. That's just like a power that he has. It's great.
And he's so casual. You're just like, "Oh, new comics." You're just like, "How are you here right now?" So that became essentially like comic book base home until maybe a year ago when I was like, "I'm going to be a host full time." And my pocketbook was like, "You have to give up everything. You can do nothing." But it's still
You'll be
still
back.
home. You know I will. You know, I'm still collecting Deadly Class because Rick Remender is everything, and Monstrous because obviously.
I've just finally sat down to start Monstrous. It was the one book. It's the one book on my iPad right now that is not related to today's conversation. I'm digging it. I know. I'm preparing myself. I'm preparing myself to dive. It was the one I didn't read for our Eisner's conversation. Like
No, and then it won.
It won
and then
all
it won
the
everything.
things.
I was there. So I got to watch Marjorie Liu give her
It was
acceptance
amazing,
speech.
wasn't it?
I wept with her. I was like, "You're so good." And then for her to be receiving it from, oh my God.
Nichelle Nichols.
Yes.
Yep.
It was like,
Can you
what is even
confirm my
happening?
memory? Because I'm pretty sure that the second time Marjorie Liu got called up, Nichelle Nichols said, "Oh, it's the one who made me cry." And I was like, did I hear that right? Please tell me I heard that right. Because she made all of us cry. But if you made Nichelle Nichols cry with your story about your grandparents and being a survivor, like, that's on another level.
I can't confirm that, but I did see Nichelle wipe her eyes as Marjorie was giving the first speech. So it was like,
Circumstantially, we're confirming it.
yes, yes. It was crazy good, especially because she was half verklempt as she's approaching the mic because it's Nichelle Nichols. She was like, "I don't even know what's happening," and then just powerhouse speech. The art in that is so good.
It's beautiful.
It is amazing. People should definitely read that. So it's still collecting here and there, long titles, and East of West. Those are the 3 that I refuse to let go of. So yeah.
As long as you're still buying one book once a month, then you're hanging on to your habit. You're hanging on. Just grabbing it right
Definitely.
Plus, the comic book fan transition is a one-way thing. Like, you're never going back.
Also, there's no shortage of friends willing to make you read books, to be like, "Why haven't you read it yet?"
We used to have, I don't do it quite as much as I used to for reasons, but we used to have a wonderfully curated pile in the bathroom of my house, especially back when I would throw parties. And so I had a lot of friends who didn't read books, and they were like, "We're just excited. As long as you've refreshed everything in the bathroom in the last 3 months, that's just all we really..." Like, here's the 15 best books, and you're just like, wow, the bathroom line is really long all the time.
Insane. Get out of the bathroom.
No, it's a new Firestorm. I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah, that might backfire a little.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So we're gonna Gotham without a Batman. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna kick this off.
Excellent.
As another late comic book reader, I remember that the notion that these superheroes existed in a space that was their own was kind of alien to me. Like I just kind of put all the Marvel characters were in New York.
Oh, I see.
And all of the DC heroes were also kind of in New York, but they didn't call it that. Or like it was like 4 different New Yorks. And Gotham was the first place where it was because of the book Arkham Asylum. When they started giving the history of Arkham, and how it was of the asylum in Batman, where they put all of the villains when they're not, in between issues, that I started to notice that the city itself kind of had a character, and the idea that this place that exists that's really is a big part of what makes Batman Batman. And then the idea that this place kind of exists outside of Batman, almost that Batman is a part of Gotham, Gotham's not a part of Batman. And that there are all these people who are also having these very Gotham experiences in that city. And like Metropolis didn't feel that. I had to like dig to make Metropolis feel like a real place for me.
You have somebody who knows how to handle Superman.
Yeah.
To make Metropolis really leap off the page, because otherwise, and same thing with Star City, where it's like.
Yeah. Star City, Opal. I mean, like there are cities that eventually got that. Like Opal was very specifically designed to be a city around a superhero. Bloodhaven also is a city designed to be a city around a superhero. But like Arkham, because of Arkham, Gotham, I realized that the original Green Lantern came from Gotham. And
Did he?
That's
Alan
where
Scott?
Alan Scott. That's where his radio company was.
I
was in
did
Gotham.
not realize this.
And I'm like, wow, this is really. Gotham's deep. There's tons of shit that comes out of Gotham that has nothing to do with Batman. And like, I think also part of it is Superman is so overpowering that he kind of, I mean, he very much overpowers Metropolis on a certain level.
Sure,
It's hard to have a story about Metropolis without Superman.
yeah, unless you're seeing it through Lois's eyes, but then it's more of like a beat copy, like kind of gritty feel to it. I still would really like. Who writes Velvet? Help me.
Brubaker.
Yes, Brubaker needs to do a reporter series with Lois.
Oh, like a Lois
yes,
Olsen?
he does.
Yes, like just on the streets, like getting the news, like hard-hitting journalism, like political scandal, something. I feel like that would really make Metropolis pop. But no, I totally get.
I was a big fan of the Jimmy Olsen Metropolis run from a few years ago with the party monster aliens.
Definitely.
I don't think I read this.
Okay, this was genius.
What was the Jimmy Olsen run with the party monster aliens?
They did a Jimmy Olsen miniseries. I wish I could remember who the artist was because it was gorgeous. But it was just this wonderful reminder of why Jimmy Olsen is really cool. And one of the best stories in it is a bunch of aliens come to Earth and contact Jimmy Olsen because they're going to throw a big festival on Earth. It's this kind of interplanetary peace festival, but he finds out that they're actually basically a bunch of college kids going to Florida, and any planet they throw this party on is decimated and like all life extinguishes when they throw this party.
Oh no.
So Jimmy Olsen convinces, he's like, I've got a plan. I need everyone in Metropolis to be really boring for a week. This is your job, is we're gonna just be too lame to throw a party at. And so like, it's the entire city bands together to be really dull, like unbelievably dull, just playing in the park and going to the library. They want to meet one of the Superman family, so Supergirl comes down and takes the alien to a knitting store. She's like, oh God, no, and like Jimmy is doing.
And these are not cool hipster aliens who are like,
No.
I appreciate your craft.
No, they're full party. They're full on jet
So
set
in
party.
this universe, is Jimmy like a social media influencer? Is this how he's getting the word out?
We don't quite, because he's got the little Superman watch still. He still does the bow tie, but he's kind of just like a well-known figure in Metropolis kind of vibe.
I feel like if we're gonna make this modern,
He's got a PlayStation. He's got a roommate.
Look, I'm gonna headcanon this. He has a great Instagram, and that was how we got people to like.
I guess he would.
He's a photographer.
Because imagine, like, you're
He's
just
a
hanging out with
photographer.
Superman. Everyone's tuning into that.
It's the only Instagram where you'll get Superman at least like once a week.
There was some. Oh, in Luke Cage, they have the superhero app where they're like constantly trying to figure out where Luke Cage is. That's going to exist in Superman's world. Like, where is he? Where are we seeing him? And he's going to be right there with his camera and his Instagram story, his Instagram live to let you guys know what's up. I totally see this. Oh man. Now I want to like get back into Metropolis. I know we're doing Batman today, but
well, Metropolis.
You had told us about the party monsters before, but I had forgotten the.
Oh yeah, it's and worth it also just for Supergirl. And like, great, I'm glad I did that. I really actually am going back to the knitting store now. Aw, so wholesome. God.
Kara.
I know, it's the best stuff.
So sweet.
I get used to calling her Kara. I called her Kara for too long.
I feel that.
And I realized that was wrong, but that's how comic book brains work. You learn one thing, and then you're stuck with it.
It took me forever to get to Hermione. I was Hermione for a very long time because I was dense as a child.
Well, there was that like book 4 intervention where there's an entire plot line about Victor Crumb not being able to say her name so that they could repeatedly remind you how you're supposed to be saying it, but it was just way too late for a lot of kids.
Everybody has at least 2 comic book characters, although this is less of a problem now that there are movies whose names they can't pronounce right.
True.
Mine is, of course, Namor the Submariner.
Oh.
Was a big one. And
are you guys Raj or Raish?
Raish Al Ghul.
I say Roz, and I shouldn't.
It should be. It's just R-A-S. It sounds more pleasant to the ear. Raish, it sounds like rash. I don't like it. Team Raz all the way.
We refer here to Ra's al Ghul or Raish al Ghul, the Batman villain. Speaking of our topic for tonight.
So yeah, Gotham. I think part of it is like having a human hero, like a really, really kind of real street hero for Gotham means that you can have a ton of stuff happening around the city all the time, especially through history, that he doesn't have to have anything to do with, really. He can only be in one place at one time.
I was talking about this with a friend earlier. Does Batman hold the record for most people and series and spin-offs for any individual entity in comics?
Maybe X-Men.
I was trying to figure out, like, if you went by number of titles, would X-Men win? But, like, Batman's just got There's just so much.
Certainly for a core hero that then has such a branching system. There was a brief moment in the 90s where they were trying to balance, like Superman had just as many people around him as Batman did, but then that all got thrown out of whack, and then you add the outsiders, and the Batman family is really big. It's really, really big, and depending on what constitutes a Bat family member, I mean, it's pretty intense.
We're getting very close to double digits of like direct family.
Oh yeah,
linked to
I mean,
Batman.
several different Robins,
5 total.
Nightwings,
right?
several Batmans. I mean,
Might be more than 5 now.
And do you count Batman Incorporated?
Oh boy.
I mean, like,
you got the We Are Robin
asking
book that was
We
Are Robin?
We Are Robin was so good. I will never get over that.
No, well, that's a good place to start, because like immediately with Batman, you get to the idea of like literally this kid with him. What was We Are Robin?
Okay.
While we pull it up on.
Batman is gone. Gotham does not know what has happened. They're like, this is weird. He's gone, and so powerful and large has his influence been that kids just decide we're all just going to be Robin. We're just going to take to the streets. We're going to patrol. We're going to keep our own city safe. It's very much along the lines of like Black Lives Matter or the Me Too movement of people just being like, we could do it ourselves. Why not? And so you get like, if you like love Robin costumes like I do, the red, the green, the yellow. So many.
Oh, there we go. Look at those. Look at those.
Nice.
Like so many different styles and attitudes and like abilities. And it's led by this kid named Duke, who's so freaking awesome, who has parents who love him but are still missing, which I really appreciate when we get kids who actually have good relationships with their parents. Not everything is sad, and you still have issues even when you do love your parents. It can be complicated.
Everything in Gotham is sad.
Yes.
Everything. Everything's sad.
But they're like really taking on, but they're messy. They don't really know what they're doing, and they're not like the Teen Titans because they don't have overseers.
Yeah, and they're kind of bad at it, which is part of the thing I like about it.
They don't know how to do it.
Is that they kind of cause as many problems as they fix. And
they're making bombs go off in subways. Issue like 3, like very fast. That's going downhill. Plus, how do we communicate with each other? Because they're young teens. They're still dealing with like their own maturity and stuff. It is a mess, but it feels accurate. Like if Batman went missing. And again, to the credit of like what makes Gotham great, it's that the people are authentic, that there's an actual culture there. So you can believe the kids would be like, okay, we're all just Robin now.
It was one of those things I was kind of expecting out of, I mean, this another point with No Man's Land was I was expecting more of a Batman.
What was No Man's Land?
So, again, one of those moments where Gotham really defined itself as a city. There was a run of books, and it's a pretty fun run of books, still pretty readable, from the 90s?
I want to say mid-90s?
Mid-90s, where Gotham got hit by an earthquake, like a big, massive earthquake. And for geography, the notion of where Gotham City is in the real world, quote unquote, is approximately somewhere near New Jersey.
We should tangent to say that my understanding is that Gotham originally started as ersatz New York.
New York.
Gotham being a term that has referred to New York for like centuries.
I can give you the whole run for that in a minute.
But it over time has accumulated other influences as people distinguish it and develop it. For instance, sort of famously in the Nolan movies, it's kind of Chicago is what I understand.
Until it's Philly in the last movie.
and then they placed it. There's been a couple times in the comic book where they placed it in the state of New Jersey, and then the Suicide Squad apparently placed Gotham in New Jersey, which is very random. But they're calling it. That's kind of where they sort of like across the bay kind of notion, because Metropolis more in the New York area.
So it's basically an East Coast city.
It's an East Coast. I mean, like the reason it's called Gotham is because they wanted to make a city. The original Batman books wanted a city that was a little more generic. They didn't want it to be set in New York. They wanted anybody to imagine it happening anywhere. And I think they literally were just going through a phone book and saw like Gotham Jewelers, and were like, Gotham, that's what we're calling it, and just went with it.
That's a great story.
That's more or less. That's what I've been able to ascertain so far.
Amazing.
But later, of course, Gotham was originally used as an insult for a city, as a way of kind of being snooty and snobby about a city. Like there was
Wait, really?
Well, originally there was a city in England called Gotham, and it was called the City of Fools because it was a bunch of people who basically acted crazy so they didn't have to pay their taxes.
Yes, respect to them.
Yeah,
That's
it was
extremely Batman.
It was the Gothamites earned a reputation as wise fools by feigning insanity in order to avoid paying taxes to King John.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. This was in some of the reading I was done. But Gotham was a way of being kind of snarky to people living in a city. I have another. Some of these notes come from the Lawrence Block's writing in the front of the Gotham Central book.
Oh, nice.
1844, Edgar Allan Poe wrote a series of satirical reports on daily life in New York, which was called The Doings of Gotham. So it's very much a way of just kind of being. It was a 19th century way of being snarky about people in the city.
There is something also poetic about the idea of like taking the name from Poe's view of a city, which is very good DNA for Batman stories.
There's a lot of, I mean, it's all accidental, obviously, but there's a lot of good DNA there, and a lot of good writers have gone back, and that's kind of the joy of this kind of comic book with a whole bunch of different writers and artists, is that these coincidences are coincidences, but then a good writer comes back and starts grabbing those threads and weaving it back in. And
one of my favorite history-adding ones was a miniseries that it sort of landed in an unfortunate position continuity-wise because it was like the last thing that happened before the New 52. But I really enjoyed the miniseries Gates of Gotham.
I have not read this.
And it was like right before that, so it ended up kind of semi-falling by the wayside, but it sort of laid groundwork for the Court of Owls and stuff like that. And it was all sort of like late 1800s construction of Gotham, dueling families, the major bridges in and out of the city, and like the families fighting for control of the city. It was great. It was
brilliant world building. Really, I mean, it gave you a sense of the Cobblepot family, and for the, God, we gotta. Cobblepots, for those of you who don't know, were a series of influential families. It was an influential family. I speak, I swear. In early Gotham, that eventually was kind of brought out of favor and lost a lot of wealth, and their direct descendant is now a mob boss called the Penguin.
So cool.
Oswald.
Which video games have you guys played of Gotham? Okay, including the Telltale version?
I haven't gotten I got a little bit of him in the Telltale.
Y'all. When I tell you that Telltale really shows their ass on making these like really great Gotham stories, in the Telltale version, you put Batman. Bruce is discovering about his parents, right? And they are not the squeaky clean people.
No, why? Why do people do these things?
It is, so his dad like worked for the boss. We don't know. It's mostly about his father, which
remind me to show you something once the cameras are off.
Yes, please. And so he has to start making like all these little decisions about what's going to happen. But what becomes most interesting is the relationships of the Cobblepots to the Waynes, and the fact that what we know from the Penguin consistently is like, oh, your family did something to my family, and now we're poor, and I had to like work my way back up. Kind of is a reoccurring story for the Penguin across lots of.
In those, but the Waynes kind of screwed over the Cobblepots in that.
In the video game, no, they steamrolled the Cobblepots and made him like so crazy and wild, and such a great like iteration of the Penguin. I usually hate most Penguins. The one in Gotham is maybe their best reimagining of a character. The TV show Gotham, yes. But this one is like young. His family sent him to England to boarding school to learn, so he comes back with a Cockney accent, and he's like kind of like the lead guy in A Clockwork Orange. And he's like tall and lanky and will just strike you at just have no idea what's happening next. And it's so great, and it's such good world building, especially if you just love like the underbelly of Gotham, which I think is still kind of what we're missing from the movies. I feel like Batman, when they try to make these like really big movies for him, they're like, oh, we'll give him like a giant villain. And I'm like, you know, you could just do like mob bosses.
Gotham's a big villain.
That. Totally.
Yeah, you don't need one guy. You could just do a lot with just the city.
Why have we not had our political thriller in a Batman movie yet? Like, it just makes no sense.
And it doesn't have to be end of the world stuff, because that's the whole point of Batman is an individual loss. Like, and how it changed and shaped his whole life, and the fact that, like, you know, it matters if your dad gets like bumped off because he was going to whistle blow on an industrial scheme. Like, that's a whole world to some kid, and that's what kind of like that's the thing that Batman's about. But I get that audiences, they're worried that I guess that audiences need giant explosions.
Well,
to be happy.
and that second film or the third film, I guess, kind of attempted a no man's land.
Yeah, briefly. So the third of the Nolan films seems like it drew a little bit of inspiration from No Man's Land, which you were explaining before we got wildly sidetracked.
As we will, because this is going to be the day today.
Yay, tangents.
Tangents are our favorite. So yeah, Gotham had this huge earthquake, was literally walled off by the U.S. government. They literally built a wall around Gotham and with armed guards and said, you have a week to get out. If you're still here, we don't care anymore. You can't leave. And for like a year, Gotham had no electricity, no water, and was basically an anarchist state.
Wow.
They subdivided the city into various gangs that kind of controlled different territories, and there was like the Jim Gordon and his cops kind of held as much as they could. And they had their own like literally it was just a cop gang. There was Poison Ivy ran the park. The interesting thing they didn't hear was a lot of the villains kind of became more entrenched in the city just by there was no room for anyone to be a villain anymore.
Right.
So literally, their version of Central Park of Gotham Park was Poison Ivy keeping all of the homeless kids living in the park and like eating and like staying safe. But if you were an adult and went to the park, it would just clomp you.
Destroy you.
And Batman was like doing his best without any of his stuff, and that was when the Huntress briefly became Batwoman for a little while.
Yeah, she was Batgirl, right?
She was Batgirl briefly. Helena. Oh.
I don't remember.
Shout out to, by the way,
Such
Batgirl.
a beautiful backpack.
Thank you to Sarah, my friend, who got me this.
It is an
the
amazing
best
backpack.
of all backpacks.
I'm like remembering bits and pieces of No Man's Land, and I'm not sure if it's because parts of it have showed up in other things.
Oh, and well,
or
I
if it's
don't think
because
I've ever
I've read
actually
it
sat
and
down
not
with No Man's
finished
Land.
it.
it's a really good read. It's rough. It's heavy. One of the most interesting things is they do a lot with Two-Face because he starts. Oh God, what Montoya? What's the name of the cop?
Montoya, yeah.
Montoya. Yeah, she has a run-in with him, and he literally flips and decides not to kill her.
In No Man's Land?
In No Man's Land.
Okay.
Like,
I did not
she's
even
there.
realize that Groundwork was there because Gotham Central, as you know, is my jam.
Yeah.
And it's very much about
And
that relationship.
He keeps flipping, and it keeps landing on heads, and like she's getting him to like help her with stuff, and they're like rounding up the gangs and like clamping down on the neighborhood, and he keeps flipping, and it keeps landing good, and it keeps landing good, and every time he flips, she like has that moment. And then finally she kind of convinces him, like, put the coin down, it's not time. And they kind of like, they have like this intense emotional bond where like the two of them, like, it's not obviously not like a romantic thing, but it's.
No, but that's such a good dynamic between the two of them, because if you think of like, for those of you who don't know, Renee Montoya becomes
Already doing it. Already doing it.
At some point. But before that, she's in Gotham Central, and she is like badass, like Latina lesbian cop, and you're like, ugh, so great, so amazing.
Wait, before she picks up the question mantle, what is Gotham Central?
Oh my God!
One of my favorite books of all time.
Oh wow! I mean, we were heading inevitably towards Gotham Central, which is possibly the best.
Yeah.
Best Gotham.
Okay, so guys, imagine you get to be a fly on the wall inside the GCPD, and Batman is just out there running stuff, but you're like just a regular police officer. It's just that. It's like SVU, but in Gotham, and it's perfection. So how do like human cops deal with meta-human villains? Like how, as a cop, like when you show up and people have been Joker gassed, like that initial reaction is going to be awful because the Joker has certainly killed at least one of your partners before. And how do you mentally get through that day? Do you take credit with Batman, or are you trying to stop Batman? And you start seeing like the idea of like, what does justice mean to different people? And it's such a beautifully told story. And guys, my favorite thing about Batman is when he's used just a little bit. When he has a salty flavor on top of things. So when Batman just appears in the corner and like just shadow, where you're like, wait, what? Oh God, there's a man there. Oh God, it's so frightening.
And
it's so good.
This was a book that was so good at just deciding to use Batman once in a while for maybe one. Like I've got a page in there that should be a Gotham Central. There we are. Oh, if you could pull that back up for 1 second.
This was written by Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka,
and this was
all-time greats.
This was after some cops were killed by Mr. Freeze, and the cops basically had this thing where, like, we have 12 hours to do this before, to solve this murder before the Bat gets it. And just how demoralizing it was. Like, their whole thing was that it's hard to be a cop when you know that there's this person here who's just going to do everything. And this was their run to the clock, and they ended up having to need Batman at the very end, and just how much and just this real loathing of and like it's a weird interconnected relationship between Batman and the cops.
If you haven't read it, like it's
so
1,000% worth your time. It way holds up. If you're a fan of the Gotham TV show, this is the original property upon which that was based.
Or what we kind of all assumed that they were using this, and then they kind of went in a different direction. But like,
I feel like season 1 it's a strong base for season 1. You have Montoya in season 1. You know, Bullock is more of the curmudgeon-y, like drunk in season 1 that he sort of is in the comic book. But then
there's a huge. I'm gonna also remind you. There's a huge cast.
Oh, yeah.
Of
they developed a lot of great characters for it. Maggie Sawyer, you get a lot of. Renee Montoya, you get a lot of.
Detective Crow is freaking awesome.
Detective Cypress Allen, who I believe became the Spectre for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. The Spectre was in Gotham for a very brief time.
Wow.
Yeah, another interesting Batman side was having a spirit of vengeance.
And he and Montoya were partners, right?
Yes.
So before, like, he becomes the Spectre, and then later on, she picks up the Question identity, and then like it's tough to hang out in Gotham and stay an ordinary
human. Batwoman for a while,
Yes.
if I recall.
And it was amazing. I said she was Batwoman earlier. She was Question dating Batwoman. It was amazing.
For me, it's all Stacy the receptionist. Stacy the receptionist is the best character. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
So snarky.
Stacy is the best. She's also the only person allowed to touch the bat signal.
That's true.
Yeah, because the cops are not allowed to. They're not allowed to actually even acknowledge the bat signal. Has to be a
civilian.
So they have a civilian turn it on and off so that they can have deniability.
Imagine the feelings you'd have. Like,
I'm waiting for Brooklyn Nine-Nine to do a deep cuts episode of Gotham City.
It's got such a vibe. It's got such a vibe.
It could totally do, like, they have all of the same characters in the same, like, positions, and I would.
Okay, it wasn't my. I've been thinking because I'm just doing my first viewing of Brooklyn Nine-Nine right now.
And I need to get on board.
I've been getting such a vibe.
Gifts and Twitter have prepared me to love this show a lot.
It's so good.
I'm also a newcomer to the show because I was like, Andy Samberg, I just don't know how I feel about it. And people were like, it is the most diverse cast. I'm like, it's about cops. I'm not sure. They're like, it's amazing.
This whole thing.
People, if you ran into a cop, you'd want them to be one of the cops from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and it's totally true because they're very chill, but also very, like, supportive and amazing. Basically, you could just they mix and it's like super funny.
Yeah, it's like I get the same feelings as like Parks and Rec and like when it's at its best, but this is almost better and sweeter, which is kind of strange considering that they all have guns. But
well, because honestly I contribute it to the like way diversity of the cast, but they don't treat it like and here's a gay episode.
No,
we're just gonna warm you. It's just people being people, hanging out, and like so you get these great moments where you're like, oh, like things I haven't seen before, but told in very familiar ways. Like their police captain is gay and he's
amazing.
I love him so much. His humor is so dry. He doesn't listen to any music past like 1700. He's like, all of it's rock and roll and I don't care for it. And it's just wonderful. And Chelsea Peretti plays the secretary, which is why I thought of this, because Chelsea would definitely be the one going up and being like, I'm the only person to touch the bat signal.
No one
Nobody
can
else
touch
can
the
do
bat
it.
signal.
Get away from it.
Okay, please, Tumblr, provide me with the Brooklyn Nine-Nine as Gotham Central memes
that I need
in my life.
No, I only discovered it because I got to play, this is my humble brag of the day, I got to play D&D with Terry Crews a couple weeks ago. So.
What?
I can talk about it now. It's on the internet.
Terry Crews?
I didn't really know who he was. I'm just like, this guy's funny and huge. That's all I kind of, like, I knew that he was from a movie that I liked, but like, I didn't really, and then like, I was like, all right, I'm sitting down and watching the show now because obviously I have to.
He's such a sweetheart
No,
and
he's
like,
amazing.
Amazingly brave for all the like the Me Too stuff he's
great.
doing. And, but yeah, you should definitely read Gotham Central if you haven't.
It is the quintessential like learning about and like learning like the what Gotham looks like outside of Bruce Wayne and Wayne Manor.
Can I do like a hard left turn from there?
Hard left.
Because in my one of the reasons that this topic came up was the suggestion you had of like a totally different side of Gotham. From Gotham Central to Gotham Academy?
I was just gonna say, oh my God.
I was about to say, is it time to talk about Gotham Academy?
Look at my Silver, she's so perfect.
What is Gotham Academy?
Oh, okay. If you like boarding school shows where kids go away and have to figure out their lives way before they're ready, but also ghosts and also occasionally Damian Wayne, but like not in the bat suit, but like in there. If you like witchy stuff and spells and the paranormal, it's got all of those things. It is a YA novel, but it doesn't talk down to kids, which I feel like comics is maybe doing the best of anybody across that, of finding a really strong voice for kids that is.
It's a little Harry
Potter.
Potter.
It's currently running, but I expect it back, I hope.
Yeah, they've had two semesters, right? Yeah. And then they did the crossover with Lumberjanes, which fantastic. Bring me all of my lesbian girls together. It's just magnificent and fun. And it's like a lot of, if you're into like Monster High from Disney, where you get a lot of the children of supervillains. There's a lot of that going on, a lot of that rich hierarchical system that's been built into Gotham.
I spent the first volume trying to like figure out, because all the teachers creeped me out. They're all so creepy.
Yeah.
I'm like, the crossover, the Gotham Academy Lumberjanes.
Yeah, there they are.
There's love our Lumberjanes.
Perfect.
Look at Map.
She's great.
She's the best.
She's so funny and eager, and like Maps is like a true nerd, so seeing that in comics.
Well, and it's a spooky old academy, and like Bruce Wayne apparently went there briefly as a child
before he got kicked out.
And but like they really baked a lot of history into it, and you get the notion that. And there's some interesting cameos. Like, how do you get a Killer Croc cameo into a YA novel?
So
like,
early.
How?
And terrifying.
And it's so good.
Like,
it's so good.
You're sneaking into an old, abandoned, burned down building. They fall through, and now suddenly you're in the sewer with Killer Croc. Like, it's thrilling. And again, just like I love seeing the kids' perspectives, because you got to imagine if you can look up in the sky and see a giant bat flying across.
Or like the big signal in the skyline every now and then.
Create like a folklore and a weird like after-hours sense to your community.
And there's weird cults, and there's like the way that it's drawn. Also, I always get the sense that it's hard to. I almost feel like if they eventually revealed that all the kids were in fact ghosts, I'd somehow be like, okay,
no, this makes sense.
That makes sense. Like there's
all
a weird
from different eras.
There's a weird ethereal vibe to even the children. Like everything doesn't feel like it's quite there.
Because Silver St. Cloud definitely feels like she's straight out of the 50s. She's like
very intense,
like proper and prim, and you're like, you're not from this era. And then you've got Maps, as you were mentioning, who's like into D&D and collecting cards and drawing anime.
What do they call D&D? And they have a great name for it in this book. Anytime they fake the D&D, it's called like Serpents and Sliders or something. I don't remember.
No, it is spectacular. It's
They've got all the curiosity and restlessness of kids, all the like cool history and backstory of Gotham stuff. I happen to love that there is something I could actually hand to readers of, like, pretty much all ages, but that has stakes and that has like an engaging story. And I'm highly biased because we have a junior high school friend at the shop who has been Silver on several occasions in cosplay. And cutest! It's the best!
Such a good character design, too. Oh,
totally.
Killer. I mean, like, there's so many other places to go. I mean, I went back in the interest of young people of Gotham. I went back and read the first issue runs of my favorite Robin, of Tim Drake, because it had been a long time since I had delved into that.
Can we have a favorite Robin conversation?
Yeah, I can have a favorite Robin conversation.
So Tim Drake, I understand, was the best Robin. Okay, from the standpoint of like, what does Batman need? How does Robin provide, fill those needs and uplift? Like, Tim is not going to let you get into your feelings too much. He's like, no, man, we're just going to go out and we're going to have fun. We're going to kick butt. And you're Batman. Like, you're awesome.
And we were coming off Jason Todd. You got to remember.
Yes.
Drake is the third.
This was a time.
The Robin name.
We were starved for Robin. there was a mighty hunger.
Yes, and he comes in and he's like powerful. But for me, like, the top Robin.
Who's your top Robin?
It's got to be Damian.
Damian's great.
Like, because
Damian's great.
He's his son. Like, you can't get closer.
Who's Damian Wayne?
Blood.
Oh boy. Okay, let's walk through a few Robins here. There have been, let's say, canonically one.
So we have Dick. We have Jason.
We have Tim.
Stephanie Brown, and then Damian.
So we have 5 official.
And you can count the one.
Did Duke Thomas ever officially take the name?
I don't know if Duke Thomas officially took the name.
He has the R on his chest, so you could negotiate and battle that. But I don't think, like, Cassandra Cain had the moment where she was a Batgirl. We can get into her in a minute. But at one point, Batman is like, okay, you have the mantle. You and I are like a thing now.
You're not really Robin until Batman says, "You're not Robin anymore. Taking the suit." Oh, okay, now you're official.
And the blue-haired girl from the Scott Snyder run, whose name I'm just completely blanking on.
Oh, you're not alone. I know.
But I don't know if she ever. I don't think she ever.
I think they teed that up, set it up, and then walked away. Like.
Future old Batman, the girl. Why can't I remember her name?
Cassie.
Carrie Kelly.
Carrie Kelly.
There we go.
Thank you.
Kelly.
Yeah, Miss Kelly can also sometimes considered a 6th Robin, but she's not technically canonical.
No,
so
she's
it's
not
a
canonical. She is a form of Robin, but
she's an official Robin. She's just not one of our Robins.
Yeah, she's not like the main run Robins. And she has her own vibe.
Yes, she's doing
which is rad.
And I really like Steph as Robin, although I feel like we were cheated a bit.
Steph is spoiler as Batgirl.
Yeah.
As I have the entire Batgirl run.
Stephanie Brown.
Oh man, there's so much. Okay. There's so much.
I can do brief recaps. Okay,
do it.
So, Damian. First of all, we're talking about Raj. If you've seen the Batman movies, you know he trained Batman. Raj has a daughter named Talia, who again was in the movies. Played really weird. You should not have her canonically as your Talia. But Talia al Ghul is a badass assassin. She's very cool. I don't want to say fall in love, but they canoodled.
Fall in lust.
They've got an on and off thing.
And so Damian is born of the Wayne Talia relationship, and he is trained as an assassin for several years.
Batman doesn't know about him.
And then when he does figure out, he's like, oh no, my son can't be killing. He takes him away from Talia, tries to turn him into Robin. It is a mess. He disappears like maybe, 6 months to a year after bringing him in. So then Dick is raising him for like 2 years, and it's perfect.
I will actually say that the Dick Grayson Batman with Damian Robin was perfection.
It's
okay.
So good.
That to be fair was perfection, but it's the Dick Grayson Batman that really does it for me.
That's fair because you have two people who don't want to be in either of their costumes.
No, they really
trying to work together. Dick is like, I never wanted to be Batman. That's why I went to Bloodhaven. Why are we doing this?
And Robin's like, when am I Batman? I'm Batman now. You're really bad at being Batman. I should be Batman.
He's so mean.
He's 10. He's just Ugh.
But he has a high kill count, so you can't really treat him like a 10-year-old.
And he has a pet cow.
Thank you to the person on Twitter who went Bat Cow.
Bat Cow.
As we said, we're talking about everything about Batman.
We're talking about Bat Cow.
Taliesin.
Well, Damian at one point had one of his first fights, which is one of my favorite stories, was in a slaughterhouse against Professor Pig, who's one of my favorite villains because he's a mess.
Great villain.
Such a good villain.
He is a mess.
I love him so much. And at the end of this awful, ugly, bloody fight, Batman and Robin are saved at the last minute by a rampaging cow who saves their life, who weirdly has a birthmark on its
like
head
a bat.
that looks like a bat symbol. And Damian afterwards saying, I'm a vegetarian now, and this is Bat Cow. And he adopts the cow.
It's a beautiful...
Because kids are gonna kid.
Yeah. It's true. It's a beautiful symbiotic relationship. There's a lot of love there between the two of them.
He's an angry Robin. He's a dark, mean, angry Robin, which is interesting.
He's a male Cassandra Cain.
Oh, there's a bit of that.
If we're being honest.
Cassandra's better. Who's Cassandra Cain? God damn it.
Okay. So backtracking just a little bit, Stephanie Brown, who was the fourth Robin, was coming up at a crazy time in comics in the late 90s, early 2000s, where
it was the time.
Sales were tanking, and they were like, throw it at the wall, see what happens. Do they like it? Will they buy it? So Stephanie's out here, like, being abused by exes, having abortions, like, very new age, like, intense, like, stuff that you would never see in a comic book before. And it was great as a girl who was, like, I was 10 or 11 when these comics came out. Again, I didn't start reading comics until 2008, but I went back to read, like, the things I should have been reading as a child. That was one of the first series I picked up. And it would have been transformative as a preteen. It is so good. She's a spoiler. She has a dope purple outfit. She's dating Tim Drake. That's how Stephanie Brown gets in here. Stephanie gets into a lot of trouble. People kind of don't like her. Some fans do. She's like, in typical comics fashion, like thrown off a bridge, and they're like, she's dead, maybe. Cassandra Cain comes in, and Cassandra is great because Cassandra is trained by a League of Assassins who are like, instead of learning to speak, you're going to learn how to read body languages. So no one talks to her, so she doesn't know words, but she can read your body before you do things, which makes her an insane, crazy good fighter. Her Batgirl costume is maybe one of the best costumes in all of superhero.
Oh, it's an amazing Batgirl costume.
Ever. Like Batgirls, Batmans, any superhero from any like platform. The stitched mouth, like the
super creepy, but great.
So freaking good. And Cassandra like is able. I don't know who gives her the power to speak. Somebody is like,
it happens.
Bam,
it's
you can speak. But then she loses the ability to read bodies because that's a thing. You can have one, but not the other.
Sure.
So then she has to relearn to fight all over again, and that journey is just fun and incredible. And she, like, Asian and like, as a kid, especially if you're like a shy teenage girl, like you don't speak a lot, but that does not mean you don't have thoughts and a voice. And so you get all of that like intermingled interior conversation that I don't think we do a lot of times.
She comes out of that very edgy DC period, but she also is a character that speaks to people, and especially people who've like been through some shit. And she was technically the first Batgirl to have an ongoing book as Batgirl. Was Cassandra Cain.
So good.
She had a wonderful relationship with Superboy, which I really enjoyed. So good. That was really that Superboy run where it was her and Superboy teamed up, and just him being so boisterous and kind of overpowering with his energy, and her just kind of doing the no, stop, you know, and very.
Think about what we're gonna do.
Slow down.
Oh, Connor.
Post being Robin and post being dead, Stephanie Brown takes up the Batgirl mantle, and that's the run where I was reading Stephanie Brown for the first time, just before the New 52 again, in the Brian Q. Miller Batgirl series. But that's her picking up sort of the mantle from Cass in that way, and sort of carving out a new identity.
They were also friends in a very weird way. Like the girls in the Bat universe very much kind of form an interesting clique at that time.
And a contrast there is that, like, you know, Cassandra Cain is a person of extremes who's incredibly competent at everything, and Stephanie Brown's thing has never been incredible competence.
No.
But she is trying. And she is kind of that, like, gonna keep trying.
I still think the kids of Gotham need their own, like, Teen Titan thing. Like, I would love to see, like, Damian, Cassandra, Steph, Tim, because Tim and Damian's dynamic is always so funny.
Oh, and they did Steph and Damian's dynamic is also adorable.
I have not seen them together.
Oh, there's a couple books.
Imagine what he thinks of the I'm not necessarily Cass level, but I'm trying. Like, he's not into it. And she's just like, you're a child. Shut up.
It's an awful lot of him like, you don't deserve the suit. And she's like, oh, you're adorable. God, look at you.
Oh, gosh. I want more of that in my life, please. Honestly, I'm still confused as to why we don't have a Gotham Academy TV show. CW, what gives? Like, honestly, with the cheese level factor that you guys bring into, like, all of your comic book shows outside of Black Lightning, it just fits that you would have, like, an actual teenage... It's Gossip Girl with Batman. Like, I honestly don't understand why I have to pitch this to people.
And anything with... And, like, you could throw Stephanie Brown in there, and that would work great. She was such a... She is... God, I know I'm going so off.
She'd be like an RA at Gotham Academy.
And the running gag about that generation of superheroes is that you put Tim Drake, Stephanie Brown, and Damian and Cassandra together, and you get a Batman. I always like the idea. Eventually, they all grow up and they all just become Batman together because Bruce is, you know, Batman is Batman, but like
they form Mega Batman.
Yeah, they form Mega Batman, and
the vehicles that turn into giant.
Yeah.
And she is such the emotional. She's the emotional successor to Dick Grayson. She brings everything Dick Grayson does to the table in such a positive way, and like you need that energy in the book. And like you've got Tim, who's like the super detective, and you've got Cass, who can beat up everybody, and you've got Damian, who understands like the notion of the bat icon and how it functions, and you just get everyone together.
I know Amy's got a thing about like accurate representation of blondes, and I feel like Stephanie does a really good job of that, right? Like she's not like the like frilly like kind of stereotypical blonde girl.
Everybody I've ever met who read this book has a weird crush on Stephanie Brown. It is unavoidable because you're like, I know you, you're a mess. Oh, we would be friends.
She's so damn charming.
Yeah.
And even if she's making a mistake, you're like, oh, Stephanie, no.
Oh, no, Steph, no.
Sweetie, we don't have to. And there it is. Oh, gosh. Tim's going to try to help you, but that kid's too bright.
And up until the most recent Batgirl book, she had the best Well, I think she had I really liked her Batgirl costume.
Yeah.
Spoiler, Batgirl hybrid.
Okay, yeah.
And
that brought sort of the purple back into the thing, which then was influential a couple of costume designs later. Because, of course, as you all will maybe remember from previous episodes, post Stephanie Brown as Batgirl, we hit the New 52, which was a semi-reset of the DC universe. Which was designed to give people jumping on points, but essentially it put...
alienated its entire fan base.
It put Barbara Gordon back in the Batsuit for the first time since the late 80s. She had been Oracle for the intervening years.
Emotional roller coaster, all of those decisions were.
It was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like, which I suppose on a certain level, although, I could still talk about, you know, putting Cassandra Cain in the black Batsuit, which I love. With the big wispy things, and then the tattered cape is so cool. She's the Batman of Hong Kong now, if I recall. That was Batman Incorporated when they were doing the World Batman.
And I think she's come into some of the more recent detective stuff because they've been doing like a Bat Family thing.
Yeah, that was
book.
the end of the pre-52. They had done a Batman in every city.
Yeah.
So he had dropped her in Hong Kong in the black bat suit with the pointy ears and the big.
I would also watch a Batman Incorporated animated show.
God.
Just because it didn't work as a comic.
What was Batman Incorporated?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So post Rest in Peace, once Batman comes back, he's like, man, it really sucks when I'm not around. Things kind of get helter-skelter. People don't really know the system of like hierarchy here. Screw it. I'm going to put myself globally. It's a very like post-Nolan Batman thing to do with Batman, because that Batman is very like, I should be everywhere, like surveillance. It's creepy. You shouldn't have that much access just because you're a millionaire. It's very weird. He does that on a global scale in comic books, giving every city its own personalized Batman, and he funds them somehow. He has a lot of money. I don't know how he has that much money.
The fluctuating wealth of Bruce Wayne is a whole topic unto
It's a whole topic. It's pirate gold or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, he finds a vigilante in every city, in like most major cities in the world, or anywhere where he thinks that like he kind of makes his target points.
Mm-hmm. That deputizes them.
And throws them as basically, you are now, as long as you adhere to these principles, we're gonna give you everything you need to like run your system, and like so that there's a vigilante in every city who's kind of answers to him, and that was actually my favorite Stephanie Brown, was she was not an official. She was part of the Outsiders group.
Okay.
So he sent her to London to like break up an assassin's school. It was so good.
That's where she belongs. Her gritty attitude totally fits a London street scene.
Well, no, I mean it was a girls' finishing school. It was a British girls' finishing school. She was an American that went to be an assassin. So it was girls with bedazzled pistols, and like it was so good. It was so good.
Honestly, Warner Brothers' best thing that they do is their animation, and I'm not sure like. They're like, oh, arcs that sold really well. And I'm like, I already read that. Like, give me the books I didn't have time to read, or were like too expensive to add to the 50,000 books I was already collecting at the time. Like, give me those animated, like shorts. YouTube is available to you. I'm just saying, I would consume more media if you had to give it to me. I wanted to ask you, okay, so going back to Barbara Gordon's like difficult transition.
Who's Barbara Gordon?
Boy. Barbara Gordon is the niece of Commissioner Gordon, if I recall. No, it
depends on the
version. It depends on the version.
Daughter.
Usually daughter.
A young person related to Commissioner Gordon, who was a librarian in Gotham City, who eventually, for reasons that are amorphous but often are just out of sheer stubbornness, decided to become Batgirl.
Librarian? Like, this is original
librarian
Batgirl?
studies, I believe.
Well, because she started on basically the TV show and then got imported immediately into the comics. I believe it was.
She wanted to be a cop, but she was too short. She was going to join the academy, but she was too short to join the academy, so they were like, you can't be a police officer.
The revamping of her story is so great, guys. I want to let you know.
she dressed up as, to make a point, she was going to a costume party, and she dressed up as if I remember
in her comic book origin.
Yeah, in the Batgirl Year One
costume party, and she brings well, I think it's in her original like issue appearances. I don't remember Batgirl Year One. Late 60s.
Late 60s. Okay.
And she dresses up as Batgirl for the costume party. But before she even gets there, there's I want to say it was like Firebug, or some such, or like it was
Firefly?
I believe it was Firefly, or it was one of those wonderfully interesting C-listers, and she just trounced him. But no one knew who she was because she was in the full costume. She was like, I am, and at one point basically, Batman and Robin show up and they're like,
who was that?
Not cool. And she's like, I'm into it now. Woo!
You can't do anything. Okay, so first of all, I really love Barbara Gordon being the first Bat family member to just be like, you don't get to tell me what to do. And she keeps that like throughout her entire like history. I like in the new ones, like when she's frequently Gordon's daughter, she's like wants to be a cop, but he's like, it's too dangerous for you.
Yeah.
And she's like, Dad, I could do whatever I want. Like, you have to let me do it. And like, I have such a complicated relationship, but I loved her as Oracle.
Oh boy.
It's crazy that she had to be Oracle in the first place, because backtracking, during The Killing Joke, which is one of the most popular like Batman stories in maybe the past 20 years, Barbara Gordon is shot in the spine. Instead of taking her to the Lazarus pit, where they take literally everybody else resurrected and healed, they're just like, oh, she's paralyzed now. Which you could be like, why does the girl have to, not be healed? Or you could be like, super awesome opportunity for representation. So,
which is what the next writers did.
Which is what all the new writers did. They were like, oh, okay, dope. So we're getting close to the internet. It's the early 2000s. And she's going to be information superhighway.
They started this.
We get somebody with internet powers.
I want to say 1989 was Killing Joke. It was not intended to be canon, but it was very popular, and they made it canon. And writers like Kim Yale and John Ostrander sort of like rehabbed her into like the information superhighway hero that she became, and she was Oracle for like from the late 80s to until 2011. It became the founder of the team known as Birds of Prey, which is possibly making its way to a theater near you.
Well, and it was also briefly a television series, which
was ahead of the curve on the
conversation.
OCW.
I know.
We could have done so much.
wrote it for a long time. Gail Simone famously took over and made the book like sort of foundational for a lot. Like there's a generation of fans whose origin story is Birds of Prey, the comics.
It really brought Black Canary out of nowhere, being an interesting character again. It brought Huntress out to being an interesting character. It did amazing things for the character of Oracle. Oracle became such a intrinsic character in the DCU that she was a member of the Justice League, of some of the highest points of the Justice League for years and years and years. Was a great character. I've been going back and reading some of it. Your mileage will vary deeply. I was trying to find the submarine episode, which was my favorite issue.
Submarine of Birds of Prey?
Of Birds of Prey. I was trying to find the one where Barbara ends up trapped in a submarine.
Whoa.
And like no chair. She is like tossed in there, and it's just like that moment of her going, "Oh God, they're screwed. This is great," and like just grabbing a belt and like literally belting her legs to her leg, and then like grabbing and just like climbing up into the rafters of the thing and just beating the living fuck out of a group of people.
That's what makes the world
using the submarine like a jungle gym, just fucking everything up.
I'm not trapped in here with them. They're trapped in here with me. And it's so good. And the cool thing about Oracle is, like, she's never not also Barbara Gordon. In other words, like, oh, is there trouble? I got this. She uses the dual sticks from her time with Dick Grayson, learning that. And so she's, like, never helpless or incapable. It's always just like, well, I just have to figure out a new way of doing things. And that is so inspirational and also, like, just a great slice of life that we don't get enough in comic books. And
it was strongly argued by folks like, I think I remember there was a particular essay by Jill Pentozzi in 2011 when they made the decision to make her Batgirl again and to put sort of her time as Oracle in the character's past. There was a wonderful essay that sort of made the point that while Batgirl was a character while Barbara Gordon Batgirl was a character we all loved, Oracle Barbara Gordon had sort of a better story. She had more of like that the basic bones of that story like were compelling in a very specific way that wasn't as strong in the like I have decided to be Batgirl because I have decided to be Batgirl. And we sort of already have that in Stephanie Brown and some other things. Now it's weird because that was like I was really strongly opposed to the change of the time. It's now like we've lived with it for 7 years. They've told a bunch more Batgirl stories. Some of them have been really excellent. They've now sort of done new versions of the Birds of Prey that Barbara Gordon starts without being Oracle, and it's sort of like it's getting less easy for me to be like this. I don't know anymore what to do with like with those versions.
I'll say I miss it. I miss Oracle
every day. Every day.
Every day.
And it's because like they were like, oh, gotcha, because Gail Simone's gonna write the new Batgirl, and you're like, crud, I love Gail. But then when Babs Harcrew comes in and they give us Burnside, which for me again is just another way they're fleshing out Gotham. Like every city has little towns and communities within it, and for them to create like a little hipster village, to give us clothes, to give us a trans roommate, to give us like, you know, a Black Canary who's in like a punk metal band. I was like,
some sweaty one-night stands, everything you really do.
All the things that you want. Dick Grayson comes around, is occasionally shirtless, and you're like, this is great. It's exactly what I wanted from this comic.
I have to mention, by the way, we are still doing our 5-minute topic at the end of the episode.
So please throw some topics at us.
Throw some topics in the chat, and we will get to that after we stop talking about the majesty that is Dick Grayson.
Oh.
Since we just came from Dick Grayson.
Is it time for the first Robin?
Is it time for some Bloodhaven? Talk some Bloodhaven.
What's a Bloodhaven? I'm having fun today.
Is that just water in your cup? What's happening?
It's coffee. It's delicious.
So the original Robin, our very first Dick Grayson, who was a child of the circus, who was a carny, an acrobat, who got.
Who hails from a time when Dick was a super reasonable common name.
Yeah, and when you could be a rich man who takes a young boy as their ward, and everyone is like, "This is my ward, Dick," and you're like, "Okay,
This is very normal.
this is normal and fine and perfectly." There we are. Look at that boy.
Yeah.
Oh, look at all his stages.
Yep.
So beautiful.
It's wearing red, though. It's weird.
Yeah, I know the red. I like the red Nightwing, too, although the blue is kind of the classic. Eventually, when Grayson is kind of done,
Keep
being
scrolling
Robin,
down. It's cool. Like,
little shirtless Dick for everybody.
That's great.
He eventually takes the name Nightwing because of a weird conversation he has with Superman. That is canonical.
Oh, wait. No, I don't know that story.
That's where Nightwing comes from. Nightwing was a superhero on Krypton.
Nightwing and Flamebird.
Nightwing and Flamebird. I have the issue.
So,
He's not even the original Nightwing.
so
Nightwing was basically the Batman of Krypton.
okay.
And Flamebird was kind of the Superman of Krypton.
You would almost think he'd want to
Kind of.
pass that to, I don't know, Connor. Just like-
Well, I mean, Dick was kind of having, and like Dick Grayson has a really interesting relationship with Superman. If you think, in my opinion,
I'm excited.
Dick Grayson and Clark Kent or Superman have the most interesting relationship other than Superman and Batman, because Batman and Superman are kind of at these weird opposite ends where they're always going to kind of be orbiting each other, and Dick is kind of unlike Batman, he's a human being who deals with the world and is kind of in it, whereas Bruce really isn't. And so he has a lot more in common on a weird level, he has a lot more in common with Superman than he does with Batman. Like the only thing he has really in common with Bruce is shared tragedy.
Yeah.
Whereas Clark's a real person who's actually dealing with shit. And so I can imagine, and they've done this in the book a few times, there's a lot of times of Dick going like, Bruce is having a thing right now. How are you doing? Do you need anything?
My two dads.
Yeah.
My two dads.
And so, like, in the book, he kind of goes to Superman. It's like, I need to get away from Bruce, and like, I need something new. And Superman's like, I got an idea for you if you want something. This is something from my childhood, and he was like, I'm into it. And
It's kind of a beautiful gift. I was salty about it at first, but I'm coming around.
Dick Grayson's life story sort of is an interesting reflection of the history of comics, because he shows up back in the time where you didn't really need detailed explanations for things, where you were like, is it fun that there's a kid there? It is. Let's do it, you know? And so he's a product of the Golden Age. He stayed Robin by far the longest of any Robin, because from the, circa 1940s until the 80s.
Yeah.
Because by the time they're
became really
inventing
awkward.
continuity, he's one of the first people that we see it basically affect, because they say, well, he and the other teen heroes should make a team together. It's called the Teen Titans, the 60s, swinging Teen Titans. And then,
like that you do the back dance for that.
you know, just to locate us in time, I don't know. And then, I feel like he's one of the first characters that you're applying. Maybe this is an over-exaggeration, because continuity came up across the entire industry, but
you're here.
In terms of reshaping a core identity for a hero, you get to the new Teen Titans in the early 80s, and he's one of the first people where you're sort of like, okay, if we apply the concept of growth and change to heroes, the first thing that has to happen is Robin has to grow up.
Robin has to put some pants on.
Not all the way, but he's now a Teen Titan, and he's like a slightly older Teen Titan, a young adult Titan, really, when it comes down to it, and he takes on a new identity. So he's the first kid who grew up in the fictional world of comics. Mm-hmm. He's the first one to go through that transformation, which now a million people have put on and taken off different identities. But I think of him as sort of the prototypical as Dick goes, so comics go kind of thing.
Well, that's interesting then to look at his most recent change where he becomes a spy and is no longer even in the superhero world. And if you think about Image and its impact on the comics industry as a whole, and a very large shift away from just capes, I think that continues to ring true. Now he's, still fighting crime, still hanging out with a lot of the Caped Crusaders, but he wears cargo pants and a tight shirt.
And
he does
Nightwinging
have to
around
date his
again,
way
but
through every superhero event.
My favorite is when he goes to the all-girls school and is like trying to protect them from something for like 5 minutes, and they're like, "Who is this hunk teaching us archery?" I'm like, "I'm here for all the things."
So he's back as Nightwing again, but his right before the current Nightwing series, there was a series just called Grayson, where he went sort of undercover as an agent of Spiral, and this sort of did like a super spy kind of deal.
Spiral is my favorite of the weird fake agencies that exist in these. It's so ridiculous, and it's the super weird group of people.
It could easily be placed into the Austin Powers universe, and we would not skip a beat.
It's very 60s.
Very weird.
Is that where Frankenstein, the modern DC Frankenstein, comes out as Spiral?
He's an agent of Shade.
Oh, that's Shade. I'm sorry, that's been a while. Spiral is connected to Batwoman instead.
Something, I don't know.
Yeah, they're the best.
And
they're
then the series I still need to read that I haven't read yet, and I don't know whether this counts as Gotham-y, but where does Checkmate come from?
Well, Checkmate comes from a chunk of no man's land in the Reconstruction time called Gotham, where there was a sort of a woman, I'm trying to remember her name, who was briefly a vigilante in Gotham, who eventually got absorbed into another federal institution, which was called Checkmate, which was basically, I want to say, was it run by Mr. Bones?
Cameron Chase? Am I making
Cameron
that up?
Chase. Cameron Chase. And it was basically a meta-human affairs group, and they were a little dark and a little sketchy. They were very sketchy. anything when Mr. Bones gets... Mr. Bones...
Who's Mr. Bones?
For those of you who don't know, I'll do as much of this as I can off the top of my head, was one of those great DC characters that's just ridiculous, which was he is a skeleton. He is a skeleton that in a suit, because he is actually, most of him is invisible, just not his skeleton. He is invisible except for his bones. And his power is anybody who touches him dies.
Yikes.
Oh, damn.
So he has death touch. That's his superpower.
Have he and the Black Mask worked together?
They're
before?
very, I mean, like, or what's the, I've always imagined, like, what was it, the gentleman ghost riding him, like, just, it's like, it's a skeleton without a body, and then just the suit without a body.
Oh, my gosh.
Gentleman ghost, that is peak DC.
We do have some great questions in here.
Oh, let's pull some before I get to Ragman or anything like that.
Let's see.
Clockman.
Jan Pickering asks, if Bruce Wayne had died with his parents, what hero do you think would have arisen to protect Gotham?
Somebody has done an Elseworlds of that at this point. Well, there's the anti-Batman. There's the antimatter universe.
Sure.
So you get Owlman, I suppose, out of that.
Like Earth 3?
Yeah, the crime syndicate.
Yeah.
That's Thomas Wayne. That's his brother. Okay. Wow. So there's a mirror universe version of DC called the Antimatter Universe, where the world is run by the injustice. What do they call the crime syndicate? Which is an evil Justice League. No, it's changed a few times.
Yeah, I'm remembering it as just plain old Earth 3, an alternate universe.
It used to be Earth 3, but
like I need to read my multiversity.
Yeah, it's now the Antimatter Universe. They're actually like for reasons they can't like.
And now there's the Nth Metal Dark Knights nonsense.
That's the whole thing.
There's even more. It's on the back of the map of the DC universe. But they went with that.
Instead of Batman in the evil universe, you have Owlman, which I assume is also connected to the Court of Owls in that universe now. But that was Thomas Wayne, who is another brother from John and Martha Wayne, except his parents didn't die in the evil universe.
His dad's normally Thomas.
Yeah.
His dad is he's Thomas Jr. basically.
His brother is Thomas Jr.?
There's Bruce and Thomas are the kids that they have because they don't die in the theater.
Oh, they have a second child. Okay.
They have a second child. Thomas is now the chief of police, and Owlman is there just to make him miserable and ruin his life. And I think Bruce is dead. Like it's all a big mess. So maybe you'd have like a good Owlman, maybe.
I wonder if Jim Gordon would have risen to be the hero, and then also if you think about... He
was briefly Batman.
Yeah.
On a weird book.
If Jim Gordon didn't know Batman, would he just be a lonely old man? Asks Fluffy Butt.
He has a family.
Barbara would be there.
Well, yeah, but he's also a workaholic, which is kind of...
He's divorced.
The reason why, and also crazy son situation, depending on which iteration you're reading. So I think he would have maybe become like Bullock, where he would have become disillusioned.
Who's Harvey Bullock?
By one of the best, also worst cops of the GCPD. He is sometimes portrayed as being like a large, very sloppy dude who kind of drinks and
He shows up in the movies.
But understands like the layout of Gotham, and instead of trying to consistently rise above, decides to work within the gritty system.
And he's not as bad as the really bad cops, but he's not as good as the really good cops.
No.
He's just kind of surviving.
He just always plays that middle ground, and you're like, Harvey, I don't really know what's happening here. But I think he definitely would have become like Harvey, just disillusioned with the ethics.
Man, I think his heart's too like.
But his heart is like that because of Batman. And that's what I think. The Gotham universe is set up so that everyone should just accept the crap that happens in Gotham. Like, it's set up so that, like, the rich are constantly winning, like, parents are dying and are having to do horrible things in the streets. Like, the whole universe is just constantly in decay. And so that little bit of interjection of Batman is what gives it, like, literal wings to, like, keep going. Like, Batman is like an engine that keeps that city moving toward a better, like, headspace. And I think that without that hope, like, flying across your, like, moonlit night sky, you don't have any of these people able to kind of step outside of their boundaries. You might have had, like, I think Barbara would have still been lighthearted and hopeful.
Maybe Helena would have stepped in there as maybe a vigilante.
Yeah,
at least.
Definitely. I think you would have had little moments, but much smaller scale.
In chat, where somebody was just like, well, maybe they leave the estate to Alfred, and he starts like a task force.
Alfred was briefly a superhero called the Eagle.
I'm sorry, what?
Alfred was briefly a superhero called the Eagle.
Weirdly, you said it again, and it still sounds.
I know it's a series of words that I know that you know, but I'm aware that you've never heard them in this order before. It was one of those kooky 1960s, we're going to do whatever stories.
Yes.
And they gave Alfred superpowers, and he dressed up as an eagle.
Leave Alfred alone.
No!
Let Alfred just be Alfred. Like, I don't understand why he needs to be more than, like, a surrogate father.
It's the same reason Jimmy Olsen becomes a giant turtle.
Aunt May?
These things happen.
Wait, what?
OTP, Alfred, Aunt May?
The two of them together?
Oh.
It's hard for me to picture Alfred with another human being.
Why you gotta be lonely forever?
I don't just see him as romantically interested. I feel like he's like, I have this whole big-ass manor to take care of, and have you met my surrogate son, Bruce? I have to keep this man up. Like, I have to keep stitching him back together.
The couple probably wouldn't work because they'd be like, we're both obsessed with our relative caretaking duties, but it would be like, take a break, be together.
Both theater nerds, at the very least. They're both theater nerds. He was an actor for a while. Also, he was a theater.
He sometimes has that secret agent pass. That's
he was in the war. He was if I recall, like from the build I've seen, that is the current build, he was a medic in the war, whatever war that was. He was an amateur actor, and he got like reasonable notices on stage in London performing some Shakespeare, only for like a couple years. And like he's done some shit.
That's an Alfred I'm interested in. Like,
he reads detective
community
novels.
Theater Alfred.
Oh yeah,
like,
community theater Alfred is a book I'd read.
Detective, and Alfred who starts telling Batman stories in a best-selling detective novel series would be awesome. Like, I would love for Alfred to have an interior life that didn't require him to be a superhero. I don't think, especially after like dealing with Bruce and like all the patching up and all the horrible things, he's constantly like urging Bruce to be like, what if you just didn't go out tonight?
What if you just went out and got involved in a repertory production of Oklahoma?
That's what I'm saying.
Could you just take a break?
Who would Bruce play in Oklahoma?
Oh
my God.
No.
He could only play the lead. Like, wait, that's like that episode of BTAS where is it Persephone? Who's the evil witch who comes down and is like, makes him sing in a Roman Colosseum? Cersei. Yes, when Cersei comes and makes him sing Am I Blue? Yes, it would be amazing.
Love Cersei.
Hearing that like low, like Conroy tenor of like Batman singing Oklahoma, I'm here for it.
They must have tried to hook up Alfred with Leslie at some point in the books. I mean,
I know Annie would be Harley Quinn. I can't say no, Harley Quinn.
No, I mean, yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I'd be into it.
Okay, sorry. Now I'm casting Oklahoma with people from Gotham.
That's not a problem. Also, memes we could use.
This is the memes for the
Tumblr.
memes Gotham deserves.
I have more requests for you.
But yeah, I mean, like, we barely even touched into like the weird villain undertow of Gotham.
Really
Also,
have not.
I mean. The villains themselves also have their own undertow. And one of the things that we were talking, you brought up that Gotham is this wonderful metaphor for kind of the emotional urban decay of just the way in which a city can drag everything down into this awful spiral, and how it's the people in it that are kind of holding it up and bringing everything out. And then, as has been definitely pointed out, a lot of Batman's villains are direct metaphors for different types of mental illness. We don't quite know how it happened, but it did, and it's a really...
Talk about those things
writers
earlier when you were like, you know, some of this is intentional and some of it is just stuff that sort of gets into the mythos and then other people draw out and make intentional. And a lot of this work was put in on Batman the Animated Series.
Batman the Animated Series, Arkham Asylum did some very...
the graphic novel by Grant Morrison, and I want to say
Dave McKean, I believe. And it really started to kind of flesh out these notions. And the work is there even earlier, and you start to get into it. There's something about a character like Batman that wants to confront these kinds of problems. It's just, he's interesting when he's confronting these kinds of problems. Not every villain he fights fits into this mode, but an awful lot of them do. The intense narcissism of Bonnie and Clyde syndrome of
Joker, Harley Quinn.
Well, yeah. Well, Harley Quinn is Bonnie and Clyde. There's actual, because I was working on a fan film for Batman many years ago, so we were like working this all out. There is a it's the effect that people will get where they become enraptured with people who are like, you get one serial killer. How do you get a serial killer with a girlfriend and a partner helping them with everything? How does that happen? How do two insane people find each other? And it's more of the one person's insanity can kind of latch onto someone else's low level and kind of drag it out into them. And the idea that you can kind of get taken away by somebody else's issues and kind of dragged into it. And she's very much somebody who was dragged into her crazy with this obsession. And now that she's even apart from it, but it's still kind of the core of her damage.
Harley Quinn is a wild character to follow, and like
Kind of a cartoon.
And a shout out here to I want to say Dr. Andrea Letamendi, who has done the Arkham sessions, which I think was like, she's an actual like psychological professional who has done a lot of breakdowns of sort of.
Is this written? Is it a YouTube thing?
I think it's
Where do I watch
podcast.
this? Oh, we gotta find that. Amazing. Yes.
I
am obsessed.
Do not make me update this tablet.
Don't update that tablet. It's a trap. No one wants that.
I just wanted somebody to confirm. I'm gonna wait for chat to catch up on that.
Thanks, chat.
Yeah, but like I like love Paul Dini a lot, and obviously there's no Harley Quinn without him. But man, that original storyline for Harley always bums me out a little bit. If you start looking at some of the little more nuanced aspects, like the idea that she didn't really like pass psychiatry school. I don't know words, but like she went to school and apparently like she just like flirted her way through, and like
that is sometimes present in the backstory. It's
they've kind of mushed that out at this point, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean we're getting to a new kind of Harley Quinn because she becomes such a fan like favorite. Like I'm really excited that we're getting like canon Harley Quinn Poison Ivy, which as a kid just obsessed with Batman the Animated Series and like catching the subtle nuances, fan fiction was a big help in being like, here are the stories you'd actually like to read about this couple, and it was great. But now it's like canonical and it's really great. And I like the idea of her like branching out, but like I still don't think we've dealt with that main issue of like You're Crazy was dragged out by the Joker, and how do you manage that now? Because I feel like
it's a weird.
She dramatically becomes somebody different than we've known her to be.
She is completely morphed
so many people now.
She is morphed so. I mean, she's not really a villain anymore.
Yeah.
She's kind of gone into this weird amorphous state where
Catwoman
like,
state.
She's in that she's very much like Catwoman, where it's no longer about being. I love that cover, by the way, and I love the new suit.
Thank you, Vera Wang. Thank you for giving us a beautiful dress. I love you.
Was it actually designed? Like
I'm
I
pretty
thought
sure
Joelle just came up with this thing.
I thought Vera did the original sketch for the dress, and then Joelle slapped it on. I think
it's a great dress.
Yeah,
it's a great dress.
So there's a book right now called Catwoman. I'm gonna find the right place to put this, and we're gonna have a close up.
Because we have our Gotham lighting. Life complicated.
Whatever.
It's beautiful.
It's Catwoman. It's issue #1 is out. #2 is coming out soon.
It's a lot of
She
fun.
has had her own solo series like a lot of the time. She's your cat burglar. You're on again, off again. You're a mysterious and uncatchable cat. Selena Kyle. Joelle Jones is currently writing and drawing this book.
It's great. That first issue is a lot of fun. It's my favorite Catwoman since the Elizabeth Taylor art thief kind of vibe that they had back in like the early 2000s.
The Brubaker run.
The Brubaker run. Fucking Brubaker.
Honestly,
no one writes Gotham like Brubaker.
He's got some great Gotham.
Good stuff.
But Catwoman's had and now I'm thinking about Jody because our friend Jody is like an enormous Catwoman fan and has contributed her own pieces to the weird landscape of Gotham. She writes Mother Panic.
Oh.
So she got the distinct, pleasure of adding a new piece to the Gotham landscape, which is sort of an update on the idea of Bruce Wayne as a socialite who's also a vigilante. Violet is like more of a modern, not quite celebutante
It's an Instagram Batman.
Front. Yeah, it's an interesting and very updated approach. It gets into all kinds of deep issues and the weird institutions, because Gotham's just full of weird institutions, schools and hospitals and all kinds of places that mess you up in Gotham. And so Violet's story gets into all of that, but it starts out with this sort of premise of what would that really look like if you're throwing people off with your party girl persona, and then just spirals out from there. Thank you, Jody.
Do a weird psychedelic pop 60s Gotham nightmare, which I love so much. Oh, yeah, actually, I have a wonderful Mother Panic image somewhere in that doc.
Ooh,
I love that cover.
Nice.
Ooh, gorgeous.
Cover. It's a fun book.
And a fantastic costume. Oh, he gets the close-up. He knows where to put it. It's fine.
This is also, I will add, this was the book that was the origin of that now infamous line. Fuck the bat.
Yeah.
I liked it best when Jody did it.
Yeah, I'm into it. She also gave us Father Bruce, which makes me very happy.
Oh my God.
Are you aware of Father Bruce?
I have not read Mother Panic yet, and it's clearly been a terrible decision on my part.
Okay.
This is amazing.
The whole Young Animal sub-imprint did a crossover with regular DC called Milk Wars.
Okay, wait, okay.
The Milk Wars were amazing.
So Doom Patrol crossed over with Justice League.
Mother Panic Batman.
Why Milk Wars?
Well, some interdimensional creatures were trying to sell off the DC universe, our universe, and in order to make it more profitable to sell, they were trying to homogenize it.
He says our universe because we live obviously in the DC universe.
And so they had put chemicals into the milk that everyone was drinking to make them to bland the universe enough for it to make it sellable to one of those interdimensional overlords. So Superman became a Milkman Man.
As smooth and commercially appealing.
He's a superpowered milkman, and he brings everyone the milk that they have to drink. The milk is what.
Okay. Garth is shouting, Amy, look at the chat.
Hey, Wonder Woman becomes Wonder Wife. Hi, Jody. She's got a vacuum cleaner and is it's really horribly domestic. And then Batman becomes Father Bruce because when he's doing his criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot conversation, instead of a bat coming through a window, I believe a Bible salesman comes to the door, if I recall. And so that's it. I will become a priest. Instead of a bat.
Batarangs? Does he have crosses that he throws?
No, he's just he just runs Bible study, and he's Father Bruce, and he's.
Oh my God! But still with the cape and cowl.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's amazing.
Wow.
It's so ridiculous. I highly recommend Milk Wars. It will make you weirdly happy.
This is clearly something I need to be reading.
You
That's
do.
Amazing.
You do.
What the hell?
It's what is it? It's the justice.
It's the Young Animal's the new imprint that Gerard Way set up where he was doing his Doom Patrol. So it's that sort of it's Vertigo, but not Vertigo side of the DC universe, and so that was their their perspective on DC as a textual story element.
Wow.
It's what was it? It was the Justice. It was the Justice Society of Rhode Island. I'm trying to remember.
Oh no!
Oh yeah, no,
I just see in chat ... What?
It's amazing. It's amazing. Like if you're a fan of Wonder Wife.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh God. Oh, it's so good.
These designs are so good, but I'd hate this for my Wonder Woman.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. Milk Clark is everything.
Oh yeah, Milk Clark is a lot.
Wow. Like a white savior.
It's I mean he's kind of the villain in the book is the interesting. Milkman Man is kind of the villain.
Well, I mean he's feeding the poison to the people.
Yeah.
It was pretty villainous.
I'm trying to find the Rhode Island. I will find the Rhode Island.
Okay.
It's so
we
good.
do have some more questions.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jimmy Child asks if Suicide Squad could be considered a Batman spinoff. I would say traditionally no. Traditionally it's wider DC universe. These days it sort of feels
kind of.
But Amanda Waller is straight from like the Gotham Batman origins, right?
I don't know.
She just comes out of.
I feel like I should. I mean, like
I've seen her mingle elsewhere, but I feel like most of the interactions I'm familiar with are straight from Batman. And as creator of Suicide Squad, I would say yes, an iteration of the Gotham universe. Because it's mostly Batman villains.
Well, and especially now that you've kind of got Harley and Ivy in that crowd, and you've also got Catman in that. I mean, like, well, there was that weird Suicide Squad. What was the name of the villain group that was all the Ragman and
Secret
Catman?
Six?
Secret Six. Thank you. That was it. It's tough. I don't know if we would consider. I mean, like I can see the argument.
Suicide Squad feels like it's more DC Universe in general. Although Amanda Waller does have several notable confrontations with Batman. I never thought of her as being Gotham-based because, like Belle Reve is in Louisiana.
Outsiders has always been kind of the edge for me. Like it's where you get like Katana kind of being a member of the Bat
that's a crossover
family.
character. Yeah, they are kind of Gotham adjacent.
There's an argument to be made.
It's weird because in the same way that now that I'm putting that together, I'm like Swamp Thing from Louisiana, but very frequently in Gotham. Just chilling out.
Well, Solomon Grundy was a Gotham villain.
Who's Solomon Grundy?
Oh Lord, Solomon Grundy was born on a Monday. Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday. He is such a cool villain. He is like every, you know how every superhero has to have their anti-version, like, you know, it's just how it works. Flash has Reverse Flash. The Reverse Swamp Thing, more or less, is a character named Solomon Grundy, who's another swamp creature. He was a murderer in the 19th century, I believe, who was like killed and dumped in a swamp, and then eventually like the swamp seepage. There's the green, which is where like the earth power comes from, and there's the red, which is like the animal power. There's also the gray, which is like this fungal kind of like where like the rot comes from. And so he's kind of the element of rot is Solomon Grundy.
He's way cool. Think like
you kill him and he comes back.
Zombie, but also he's like he's like 30s fit, like 1930s boxer fit, where he's like square and and he's slow, but also just like powerful punches.
Sometimes he's smart, sometimes he's not. Like he changes every time he comes back.
And I love that. Like there's a whole set of Batman villains who just sort of are nursery rhyme people. And like I like that he's one of those where it's sort of like, I'm not going to obey your notions of realism. I'm going to be Solomon Grundy.
And because we're going to be getting into Starman soon, and he's a big part of the Starman mythos also in a very.
I haven't read Starman yet.
I was going to say.
The James
Opal
Robinson
City
run.
rocks my world. Oh my God. This, I found it, by the way. It's the Community League of Rhode Island.
There we go.
Oh,
there
look
we
at
are.
the vanilla toastness of this.
It is a Wonder Bread butter sandwich. It is just
But led
margarine.
by a black lady.
Oh, it's a Vixen.
Shit! No! No!
Oh,
I love Vixen. How dare you put her in such a bland dress? She's a model and a fashion designer.
She has a tennis date, quite obviously. That is a tennis date suit.
I'm very upset.
This is how wrong this book gets.
This is so wrong. My Vixen?
Oh yeah.
Pain.
Oh yeah. It's amazing.
Oh man, she still looks good.
Oh yeah. No, she. Well, you know.
Oh, there's a necklace.
Yeah, necklace. Yeah, it's great.
Oh wow.
Yeah, fantastic.
I was going to mention Tetched next and the Mad Hatter as we were talking about these nursery rhyme villains. Because he's in the Neil Gaiman book, one of the first ones I bought. And I was like, the Mad Hatter, and there's a whole Alice in Wonderland parallel series of characters that reside in Gotham.
That character. I love that character so much.
Because he's so good.
I came up with a whole theory for how he works and his origin that does not exist in the books that I'm much happier with. But yeah, I went like...
Write it down. I'll read it.
Oh, I have it written down.
Yes. Since you already have yours written down, I know you haven't finished Gotham yet, but if they get like
I've
three
seen
villains,
pictures of their Mad Hatter,
he
and I'm
is
into
easily my second favorite villain from that universe.
I was such a big fan of the Roddy McDowell animated series Mad Hatter, though. I'm into it.
Okay, I'll give it to you. I'll give that to you.
But like, yeah, I'm excited.
He's a whole new level of like weird and crazy and all rhymey and super fun. But yeah, Tetched is like fun. He's like a tech genius who like makes a magic hat, but it's technologically based, so it's not magic. It's tech based.
That's all in line with my internal theory. That's good.
in the first book I read, he like slips essentially what you'd assume is like an acid, some kind of psychedelic, to Batman and takes him like almost in a Scarecrow way, where it's like we're gonna relive your parents' nightmares, but instead more like you can't save Gotham, and like the horrors of that. And he's so psychological and trippy, but he sets up like a tea party with mostly not real people or sometimes dead people.
Okay, I'm into it. I'm so into it.
Right?
Ah!
So good. Tesh he's amazing. I feel like he's very underused across
I would
comics.
agree. Well, he's also sometimes, and I actually don't enjoy when he's used as a cheap mechanism for putting kids in danger, which is my least interesting version of that. I'm like, that's all fine and good.
It's more Pied Pipery than
Mad
Mad Hatter.
All fine and good, but like I really like more of this psychedelic pop 60s. We're gonna kind of what we were doing a lot with oh God, what's the name of the doctor with the tiny glasses who just looks evil all the time?
Oh.
Hugo Strange?
Hugo Strange.
I was gonna say Doctor Strange, and I was like, Strange
Hugo.
Love, Strange.
Hugo.
You were Dr. Strange. I never thought that. I've never thought that through.
It always bothers me
That
a
there's
lot.
two Dr. Stranges.
Yes. And that they're
make
very
sure you're
different.
seeing the right one.
Fundamentally different creatures.
Oh, please tell me the story about the people who show up at the wrong Dr. Strange's door.
Oh.
And vice versa.
Hugo is not a nice man. Hugo's a bad man.
B.D. Wong plays him in Gotham.
I've seen
So
again.
good.
I've like.
Okay, that sounds worth getting to.
It's so good.
I thoroughly dislike the pilot episode of Gotham. I live tweeted it.
That whole first season is not a real thing.
I live tweeted it. I didn't like it so much, and then for research for this episode, I came across a gallery of all the different characters that have shown up in Gotham, and went, huh, hi.
Gotham is one of the shows where I feel like the writers sat down to write one show, and the network's like, that's not what we're trying to do. And you feel like that tension conflict of like, where are we really supposed to land? Season 2 gets a little bit better, but by season 3, they've established their own mythos so perfectly. Like, it doesn't.
All right.
A lot of people are like, well, it's not like my Batman, or I don't want to see a young Bruce. You guys throw all those notions out. This is an entirely different universe set apart, and it's basically a what if. Like,
I love a good what if.
Instead of, and here's the interesting question, because the reason Gotham bothered me from the jump is like, to me, you don't get villains until after you get Batman.
Yeah, it's chicken and egg.
Batman comes along, people are like, oh, we're doing costumes now? Great, I can keep up with that. This is the reverse of that, which says Gotham created villains, and from that, Batman had to adapt. Now, I think when you get into Batman's like older years, that story becomes a lot less interesting, but to see it as a kid and just again as a what if, it's so fun. I really love it, and like they're having a lot of fun times, like bringing in random villains. And your guy Pig is in there too.
I love Professor Pig.
He's in there with the Cockney accent and screwing all kinds of stuff up. It is what it is, but for what it's doing, it's very interesting.
Professor Pig was named that by Grant Morrison off of a song written by Nick Curie called Pygmalion.
Really?
Oh wow.
Yeah. Professor Pig it's a very dark, weird song. I'll play it for you sometime. It's very.
Is it based on the like Pygmalion and or My Fair Lady?
No, I'll play it for you. It's a very strange. Momus is a whole thing that we will go into.
That's weird Pink Floyd vibes.
I'll show you later. It's one of these weird little musical interludes. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely a lot of fun if you. He's an amazing and interesting Scottish musician who's written some very dark, weird music, but also gets like really well covered by Amanda Palmer on occasion.
Okay.
Yeah.
I Like You, But I Don't Need You. So he's the original author of that song.
Oh, really?
That she wrote. That her version is the one that everyone knows.
Yeah, that song messes you up.
Yeah,
makes you feel things.
Definitely makes you feel things. Yeah. God.
Power.
Oh my God. Oh, Mad Hatter. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for bringing me back, Mad Hatter.
The rhyming villains. There is also an egg.
I love a good egg.
Which is weird. And it's based off Humpty Dumpty, right?
Mm-hmm. Who was the egg? Wait.
Humpty Dumpty. It was the egg. It was egg. It was Mr. It was the egg. Was because he was part of that. They had a. There was a
I have discarded whatever knowledge.
Have they brought Bookworm back? That's my other deep cut.
I remember seeing Bookworm
Bookworm's
in the Grant Morrison and Neil Gaiman crossover Batman series right before he leaves, circa 2008. There's a couple of issues where they just go through like the deep cut rogue gallery, which was a great place for me to start because I was like, there's a Clockman and a Calendar Man for what
Calendar
reason?
Yeah, long
Clock
Halloween.
King, Clock King, and Calendar Man.
Woo,
You're running out of time, Batman. Good stuff.
Oh man, wild characters who, again, when used correctly, I've seen one good story, and I wish I could remember who wrote it, of Calendar Man, where it was just specific dates, and so you're trying to figure out like why.
Well,
Batman: The Long Halloween.
The Long Halloween was the great Calendar Man story before they rebooted him into the weird chrysalis thing that he does now.
Oh, I haven't seen him.
They gave him a weird thing where like he sheds his skin now every year or something weird like that, or he actually like he's got like a weird. They did a weird thing to him that it may be good. I just haven't delved into beyond like. Okay, we're doing that now.
They also did a good, very briefly touched on Calendar Man in like one of the Duke Thomas stories relatively recently. Should have looked it up. Don't remember the exact site, but like you get like Batman gives you so much room to play with concepts of mythology, so that you can do this infinite number of like Batman deals with the seasons. Batman deals with time.
versus winter. Yeah, and it's very.
He's got several versus winter.
Ragman was another one I was going to pull up out of.
Who's Ragman?
I was trying to find Anarchy, and I was like, I remember that Ragman was a thing.
Okay, who's Anarchy?
Well, we'll start at Ragman, and then we'll get to Anarchy's deep. Ragman less so. Ragman was kind of a C-lister in the DCU because they just Gotham is also filled with weird magic issues. There's a lot of weird magical psychic characters that also exist in Gotham for some reason. Zatanna. Bless our favorite backward speaking stage magician. Ragman is very much, he's kind of the Venom of the DCU. If you're into.
No, I know there was a recent mini where they did sort of a new version of Ragman.
They did.
The one walk me through the versions.
Well, originally it was a bunch of sentient cloth. I was trying to remember exactly, but it was some sort of weird Judaic myth because like it was one of the first like Jewish superheroes that they really hit on in the DC. DC that it was kind of some Gollum-esque creature where the rags would actually come alive and like a person would inhabit inside them as they like would fight. This is a similar take. They haven't delved into it yet. Into the depths of it that I've read so far, but I think they're probably going to get there where it's this veteran who comes back.
Taliesin's pointing at the new
I'm gonna
Ragman
put up the Ragman. The Ragman. He lives in Gotham, and he's a veteran who came back from military service in what I assume is to be some sort of Middle East country where there are pyramids because they kind of rob a grave. And they find something. There's sort of this sort of undead presence or demonic presence that they fight. This group of soldiers. The guy who comes back, he's the only survivor of this group. He doesn't really remember what happened or what's going on. But at some point, these demons, he's having a lot of mental issues, coming back into Gotham and like not doing well. And slowly, there's just something in his head with him, and like it's basically the powers of Venom except it's cloth.
It's kind of like the Unknown Soldier meets the Mummy.
And then he's starting to hear voices there are sentient consciousnesses in the rags, and it's his platoon
meets
that died.
Strange.
So they're all starting to talk to him because they're starting to feed and get more energy and kill these demons, and they're like, "We're here, we're with you," and like it's kind of a dark, fun take on the character so far.
Interesting. Who's doing that?
Yeah.
Fox. It was a mini, so I think it's done now.
Yes.
You can probably get it and trade.
I have a button for that. Ray Fox. Inaki Miranda on pencils.
Oh yeah.
It's a beautiful book. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the vibe. I'm not always a big fan of Venom-y characters. Not always my jam. A big splooshy things that smush the things that they want to fight.
Not a flubber.
You heard it here first. Big splooshy things that smush the things they fight.
Flubber 2, flub harder. Live free or die, flubber. Yeah. A good day to flubber. Although this is kind of an interesting take on it in the way that they kind of do the glowing demonic eyes.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a really, I mean, like
beautiful. And Inaki Miranda, I think we know.
Reminding me of Dr. Fate a lot.
A lot of Dr. Fate, actually. Yeah, it's a very fair comparison.
The Dr. Fate book was also good.
The relatively recent, just before Rebirth.
Yeah.
Dr. Fate.
Oh, Lord. They were like, yeah, we'll bring in like a young brown kid. I was like, what? Yes. He lives in New York, but his parents are immigrants. It was perfect.
Sunny Lou did the art on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm trying to remember which of the other JSA. I don't know if the rest of the JSA was in Gotham. There were little chunks of it, though, of like the old-timey kids who came from Gotham.
Gotham City?
City, yeah. The retroactive, like trying to grab some of the World War II superheroes and say, like, they were Gotham kids. And that's where Alan Scott was placed.
Yeah, so I think I missed a lot of that sort of layering back into things.
We should do a JSA episode at some point.
Yeah!
That beautiful JSA reboot.
And of course, speaking of alternate things and layering them back in, you do get characters like Huntress, who, because of comics are like comics, has had several different origins, but they're all rad.
Amy Dallen, who's Huntress?
Literally everyone is rad.
Touche.
Helena, usually Bertinelli.
Usually Bertinelli.
Frequently the daughter of a mob-connected guy who sort of has walked the line over time of justice and vengeance. And has trouble staying on the correct side of it. Now, also, potentially, originally in an alternate universe, the daughter of Batman and Catwoman.
That's my favorite one.
Also puts her sort of on the, like, justice or vengeance, like, kind of walking that tricky moral line is the Huntress way, really. But all of her versions I sort of equally love. Notably, like a foil to Dinah and Babs in Birds of Prey.
Oh, she was brilliant there.
Likes to go off and do her own thing. I even like her Arrow version. Who's they go very much the like mob daughter route with that one.
She was our reboot of Batwoman back when she was our first Batwoman reboot when
she was.
I believe it was.
Right?
I believe it was
Batwoman.
I believe it was Batwoman, and then when they handed it to Cassandra, it became Batgirl because then we got a new one. I'm pretty sure that's how it went.
Did she?
A long time ago. I'm a little.
We haven't gotten into Kate Kane Batwoman, who picked up the Golden Age Batwoman's legacy after a huge gap in the middle. And that's a whole nother episode because she's the best.
She is so cool.
Does Huntress? Is Bertinelli ever questioned? Or I made that up.
No.
Okay.
But
Montoya
was questioned,
Yeah.
although they never, there was a whole, that interesting crossover where they made her the question. They never officially said her name was the question. I was curious if we were just going to start referring to her as the answer, which I thought would have been a really good name.
Those backup stories in the Kate Kane Batwoman, during the run of Detective Comics, when instead of starring Batman, it starred Batwoman. Kate Kane, written by Greg Rucka, art by J.H. Williams. One of the best times to be reading comics.
So good.
Characters so pale they look like a vampire.
Yeah.
But
the backup
it's so pretty. And then like Alice, so many good villains.
The backup stories in those issues were Renee Montoya as the question. And
such good stuff.
It was a really, really good time. From what I've heard, they were like weird stories that were just banked for some reason, the way comic book companies are sometimes like, I don't know, we commissioned this and we don't know what to do with it. So they were like, we'll just burn it off in Detective. When we were all like, excuse you, but please make this a thing. This is the best. Why is this not a thing?
Well, the question is another good character that came out of the weird reality of Gotham. I mean, like, it was not originally.
The question is
not Gotham.
Vic Sage, what's his name?
Vic Sage, who was one of the Hanley character.
Was he?
was Bob.
Oh yes, of course. He was Charlton.
Charlton.
He was Charlton.
Characters.
I think Ditko worked on him, right?
That sounds right.
And then got introduced. We know he's Charlton because you can track back if it reminds you of a Watchmen character. There's a decent chance this is a Charlton.
So the question was the DNA of Rorschach.
Yeah.
And they had a lot in common, although the question was a little bit softer of a character, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's not as angry. Because the question is like the world's second greatest detective, right? Right after Batman.
Well, I mean, on the official listing, nowhere near. I mean, like there's a it's technically isn't Elongated Man one of the
this is one of those
Sandman.
Everyone is the smartest man kind of situations where everybody's the best detective except Batman's definitely the best.
Batman's very good. Tim Drake's very good, and then like Elongated Man is and Wesley Dodds is also up there like very high. There's a bunch of like famously good detectives and questions. He's more of like the Dr. House. He's the I've solved it because it's all in the chemtrails.
Well, and
he's also like in a conspiracy theory.
Oh, he's super
they
conspiracy.
Get into that a lot in the animated adaptations, in the Justice League stuff. They
so good.
They heighten that element of like conspiracy theory with question, which is just weirdly lovable in that specific context.
Well, and he died of lung cancer of all things. He was a character who actually got sick and just died, which is a very rare thing to happen in comic books, where someone just has a life, and very much was like, well, I'm sick. I'm going to train somebody else to do this and like get this done. And it was during the 52-week 52, the original 52, which was a weird experiment.
What was 52? It might not.
This is the weirdest episode we've ever done. I'm so happy.
Like
so all over the place, but I'm really loving it.
We're just having.
You hanging on, kids? I hope you're hanging on.
Dark of Nate requests that people stop doing flubber puns, and I'm very sorry, Dark of Nate, that's not going to happen.
No. I've been trying to hold back, but I'm gonna flub it eventually. So. Yeah.
Fate of the flubberous.
Electric flubberoo. There was originally, the notion of the original 52 was, can we put out a serialized comic book every week? 52 weeks, 1 year of telling the story of everything happening in the DC universe with a weekly book. It was insane.
It's a team of artists, team of writers, but they had a lot of great people working on it.
I think in retrospect, it was probably an interesting experiment. I think it succeeded, but I think they were wise enough to never do it again.
What's interesting is that came right. So, like, comics are obviously like a boom burst industry. Like, that bubble is expanding and shrinking all of the time. And so, like, that whole experiment is like, well, we have to sell more comics, and we'll, like, collect them. If you're, like, when I started collecting, I was an eBay freak. I don't know if that was your trajectory. Definitely maxed out my first credit card just buying comics on eBay.
No!
It's a real story. It happened to me. And one of the first comics I bought was like, okay, well, I'm trying to amass all this information because I'm a research hound, and this is before we have all the cool, like, comicsology apps where you could just go online and just buy them. So I bought that. I bought Infinite Crisis.
I love Infinite Crisis.
On Infinite Earth. Like, all of these not great series of comics.
I love Infinite Crisis. I will defend it to the bloody end.
Look, I found that as a new reader, I found value in all of it. Like, I was like, oh, there's so much information in here, and I'm learning, and I was able to, like, cross-section a lot of, like, the other things that were going on. Wikipedia
there was a lot in Infinite Crisis. I will admit, it is not a good book for I'm going to delve into comics. What is happening?
You know, but I disagree with that. People are like, oh, it's going to be too confusing. I'm like, all comics are confusing when you first start. You're like, where do I start? There are so many things. But here's, like, one story that's continuous, and if I don't know something, if it's like, because they're really good about putting the reference numbers down at the bottom.
Reference numbers are good.
You need to be reading this comic book to understand this plot. So I would just go to Wikipedia and I'd be like, what happened in this comic?
Why is there a talking tiger?
And it gave me the basis of my DC knowledge. Those 3 different comics was like the perfect foundation
that's a nice
launching.
That's got my favorite Mary Marvel story, but that's another story.
It's crazy. It's so many characters are changing mantles at that time, dying, coming back. The Infinite series is nuts, but I highly recommend reading it just for that, like, brain knowledge, just so you have it.
It is deep brain knowledge. Oh, man.
Do you all want to pause and do our 5-minute topic at this time?
Yes.
We can do our 5-minute topic. That's the thing that we can do.
We like to normally jam it in right at the end when we're out of time.
We'll do it now, and then we'll take some more questions.
Yeah. So, this is this week's 5-minute topic on the Wednesday Club, where you all make us address something to be determined and chosen by our producers. I'm Amy Dallen. This is Taliesin Jaffe. Please welcome special guest, Joelle Monique. Hi. And today's 5-minute topic is, oh my God.
Okay.
From CL Jedi, you are a completely ridiculous Batman villain. What is your gimmick, and what weird thing does Batman have to do to finally defeat you?
Oh, no.
Okay. You are a weird Batman villain. What is your gimmick, and what weird thing? You are a completely ridiculous Batman villain. What is your gimmick, and what weird thing does Batman have to do to finally defeat you?
He has so many villains, and I'm trying to find something, like, beyond ridiculous that hasn't been touched.
I know, like Kite Man has already been taken care of.
Yeah.
Where do you go after Kite Man? Oh, man.
5 minutes on the clock.
I know. This is going to be, and I've spent so much time thinking about Mad Hatter now. I have to come up with something
I'm going to theme mine around American Girl dolls.
Ridiculous.
Damn it.
Because it's got history, and it's got creepy dolls. I love the American Girl dolls, but that's what you build on to make this terrifying villain version of me, where I would somehow get, like, the dolls would become little sort of voodoo dolls for the ancient families of Gotham.
Oh.
It'd be like the Gotham Girl dolls somehow.
Yes.
Right? Like, it'd be a whole set of them. And then I would, like, get them into all the kids' homes and, like, because there's a lot of variations on toys and dolls that Batman deals with, but I feel like combining it with Gotham history might be the thing that distinguishes my, like, and you know, the company that makes American Girl dolls, it used to be called Pleasant Company. Yeah. So we'll go with that. That's definitely the name of my, like, fake faction. So on behalf of the Pleasant Company, we will infiltrate Gotham using the Gotham Girl dolls and their very expensive accessory sets. But what does Batman finally have to do to take me down?
What does he have to do? God, I don't know.
Okay, well, you mentioned
this is why I'm not Batman.
You mentioned voodoo. Like, a lot of times, voodoo things, in order to burn them or counter curse them. So I like the idea he has to finally team up with Swamp Thing to, like, take out the magical, like, aspects of these dolls. Like, bury this. We have to bury the dolls in the swamp with Swamp Thing.
All the little historical girl dolls just sinking into the swamp.
I love it.
I love it.
I love it.
Their eyes little blinking.
We've been talking about mirror universes and mirror characters. I'm going to take that idea and go opposite of Batmite, who is one of like my favorite but also most annoying characters in comic book history. And so I'm like Batman obsessed, and I want all like anything bat hyphenated. So like the Batmobile, like the Batcopter, the Batboat. My only goal is to like steal and take those things. And so the only way Batman can defeat me is to destroy all of those things and start from scratch, which gives Lucius Fox a nice way to have to create new fun things.
I love it. I love it.
I don't know how I'm defeated. I came up with a villain. I don't know if this is a kooky villain. What I've come up with is Landmark, which is he's obsessed with not having any new construction at the city and just keeping everything as pristine as humanly possible.
Oh, I love that.
So he just constantly is going around stopping any sort of construction site, any sort of rezoning. Anything he can do is just whoever he has to murder in City Hall to make sure that things don't move through.
So like Bruce is working on some sort of revitalization thing for some like really crappy area of Gotham.
It's like,
and,
no.
like a series of accidents have stopped construction. And
it's a villain who knows too much about everything that ever happened here, and it all can't be taken torn down. You have to maintain all of it. Yeah, I don't know how to defeat him other than like
Batman has to create an event so historical it trumps the original event that happened there.
Yeah, it just has. Perhaps it's with time travel at this point.
The generation of like kids, the We Are Robin coming together to sort of reclaim and like. Somehow like melts his weird brain heart by them establishing like, look, we will write our own lives onto Gotham
and digitize the archives. Or it's like, okay, well then.
Where like he's like watching them edit like Wikipedia 4.0 of Gotham and sort of is confronted with the fact that they are making history in some way that like. That he's, despite being a just total vicious murderer, unreasonable guy, like cannot handle the evidence that time must move on, that the kids deserve to live in the Gotham that'll be revitalized.
Well, there's also the fact that Bruce Wayne has actually traveled all the way back, and this is true. This is in the books. He's traveled back in time and has actually affected Gotham's history like 6 or 7 times. There's like the pirate ship, those the weird Pilgrim Gothams. If you've read that book,
Return of Bruce Wayne.
Return of Bruce Wayne.
A series of one-shots in different times,
including Caveman Bruce Wayne in Gotham, who's like it's like that deep and realizing you can't mess with Bruce Wayne because then all of history changes and it ruins everything anyway. Because you can't fight the bat.
I saw him go back. Who's the caveman who gets struck by a meteor and gets super smart?
Oh, is that the last boy, or is that no? It's a.
And then he becomes like a tech billionaire later because he's the first intelligent living being.
Savage? Are you talking about Savage?
Yes, Vandal.
Yeah. Vandal.
There's an episode of the JLA where. Like he travels back in time with Vandal and like learns a bunch of stuff, and then they're like in the future, and he and Vandal have to like correct the timeline.
We're gonna have to go deep into.
Okay, so Landmark and Vandal Savage would definitely have
they would
team up until Vandal eventually like
tried to eat him or some such.
Double crosses him when he realizes Landmark's limited vision is gonna get in the way of whatever thing he's got going on.
Because that is my end.
What a great question!
I was so impressed by that.
Thank you so much, Steel Jedi. We with 3 seconds to spare.
Not bad, not bad.
Those are our Batman villains, and that's how Batman would take us out. You can watch our show every Wednesday night on twitch.tv/GeekandSundry and on Project Alpha at 7 o'clock Pacific. I am Amy Dallen.
I'm Taliesin Jaffe.
And please welcome special guest,
Joelle Monique.
Wow, we got through that one early for once. This is exciting.
I like Batman Day.
Batman Day is great.
That's fun.
You've got to read the time travel Batman because they made a bunch of action figures out of it too. It's where you get like the Pilgrim Batman action figure and the Pirate Batman action figure. It's so good.
Ooh, T-Boyce has a good question from Alpha. Have we talked yet about the political, social, and civic figures in Gotham City? Hamilton Hill, Harvey Dent, Grange. Has there ever been a leader who has left Gotham better than he or she found it?
Whoa.
Good question.
Wow. I'm stunned.
The problem is, unfortunately, while hope springs eternal in Gotham, things never get better for long. Like, pretty much everyone who's here to do something good is going to die or get corrupt. That's just going to happen.
Here's a terrible notion: do you know how No Man's Land ended?
I don't.
A independent contractor came in against the wishes of the U.S. government, came in and restored power and water, and came in and rebuilt everything, and brought the city back from the brink as part of a bid to become president of the United States. and that person was Lex Luthor.
Of course it was.
Okay, so Lex Luthor,
Technically speaking, left. I mean, it gets weirder because he was laying stuff in the ground for later that all got really weird and dark, and it was obviously part of the larger sinister plot, as it always is with Lex. And it was the first time Lex Luthor also didn't know Bruce Wayne was Batman, so there was a whole Bruce Wayne doing the you have no idea who you've just pissed off. Oh my God, this is going to be good.
I love billionaires threatening other billionaires.
It's pretty funny because Lex is the worst, but he would also never let his city get as bad as Gotham.
No.
But also living in a fake Lex Luthor utopia would be worse than living in the actually shitty Gotham. I don't know. I don't know where I.
No, it's interesting. It's a tricky reality. It was a really interesting book, and it led to a lot of moral quandaries. I want to say that while Jim Gordon was not one of the fun things about Gotham Central was Jim Gordon was not commissioner of police at the beginning of that book. It was Cypress Allen, who I thought was a really interesting character, and I think he did a very good job of building a Gotham police force that was very, very positive without being a Jim Gordon police force.
Cypress was a perfect, not Danny Glover, Danny Glover.
Yes.
Just, I'm too old for this shit, trying to keep it all together.
And then when he gets superpowers, it's even worse.
Okay, I still can't picture everybody needing superpowers.
He gets superpowers at some point.
I will say, chat, we see you. Gotham City Sirens does deserve a shout out.
Yes.
That was
on the list.
A book that ran for a couple of volumes that dealt with some of the Gotham ladies. I had mixed feelings about the book because I was really enjoying the stories and some of the art was a bit TNA for me, which I'm fine with sometimes. I read a lot of Birds of Prey with a lot of very late 90s, early 2000s art in it. But it's just, I have to be in the right mood.
Totally.
I will admit I really enjoyed when they brought Eddie Nigma into the book. I thought it was kind of an interesting. He was. Not that it wasn't great as the all girls crew, but bringing that as an interesting voice in that crowd, I thought was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I also feel like we have to mention very briefly the fact that many of the Looney Tunes characters are now Gothamites in canon, and it
Elmer
thrills me.
Fudd?
You guys, I literally went to a friend's house the other day. They were like, "Have you read the Batman Elmer Fudd thing?" And I said, "I didn't know that was a thing. I'm perplexed. I don't think I'm prepared." And he was like, "You must read it." I'm like, "What?
You cannot be prepared."
I still haven't actually read it.
Okay. It is a very long Looney Tunes joke. It's a single issue.
Yes.
It reads just like a Looney Tunes episode, but dark and in Gotham. And most of the characters in that iteration have been given human hybrid forms.
Okay.
So, the rooster is still the rooster, but he's like a southern gentleman, bacawing at people. Elmer Fudd is a heartsick assassin whose girl ran out on him and he's trying to figure out what happened.
It's so weird.
Ask me how ready I am for Catwoman, Sylvester, and Tweety.
Wow.
That's coming out.
Dude, this is maybe the best thing DC's ever done. Honestly, because it, way to stretch your artist and your writer's imagination, way to bring everybody together, way to shock your audience. It's something I would never have picked it up off the shelf because I was like, that's just weird.
No,
but
it's so
fun.
weird. If it wasn't for the show, I wouldn't have read them.
There's an infinite number of cool variations of things you can do with Batman. There's this astonishing flexibility of the Gotham universe. You can have things like Batman Lil Gotham, which are adorable, cute little versions of all of deep continuity. You can have
Gotham City Garage.
Which our friends Jack and Colin write.
It's spectacular. It's Road Warrior. It's Road Warrior Batman.
Yes.
So the whole it's motorcycles and it's just great.
Oh, sex. I love this. It's so punk rock.
It's so punk rock.
You can have if you're looking for all ages friendly stuff, you can have Batman Adventures. Collects all of the tie-ins from back when the Batman and the animated series was on, and they were making comics specifically designed for that version of the universe. But they still tell really wonderful stories.
I do also have the Archie Meets Batman 66 book, which I just downloaded. I haven't read yet.
There's whole comics based on the 66 version of Batman. We need to schedule a proper Batwoman episode because our favorite former military Jewish lesbian vigilante
vampire best goth makeup in all of DC.
There's so much more we can get into, but thank you all so much for your questions.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, since you're kind enough to come by today, is there anything you want to shout out or where people can find you, etc.?
Yes. You can always find me on Twitter at Joelle Monique. I live there. I mean, reach anytime, literally day or night. Also, head over to Pajiba, PAJIBA. We're like a feminist pop culture news website, which is super amazing. I've got a podcast called Getting Out, which is a living oral history of Black artists working in the entertainment industry. How did they get out of their situations to work in the entertainment industry, and how do they overcome racist interactions within the community to continue to thrive and have a career and everything. So that's going to be coming to you really soon. Also, I will have a GoFundMe coming up probably on Friday. I'm trying to get to Toronto International Film Festival. I'll be one of like maybe 15, 20 Black film critics there. So if you want to support me and help me get up there, I would really appreciate it. And I'll put the link on Twitter very soon.
Heck yeah! Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
I have been plotting this for some time, where I was like, are you free? And looks at schedule August.
What is happening? No, I'm so glad to be here. This was a really great conversation. I've missed the comic book store.
Isn't this great? Yeah, no, this is.
Thomas will be here whenever you are.
The only way we get to do this because of the way our industry works.
I'll be back anytime.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned for Weave Society tonight. We will see some of y'all all over Gen Con this weekend.
All weekend at Gen Con, it's going to be crazy.
And then back here next week for Wednesday Club, where we should have a Matt Key.
We should have a Matt Key, and there's talk of Ditko. It could be Ditko. It might be our Ditko episode.
And Ditko, something we don't know.
We don't know. We'll find out. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for watching.
Have a wonderful week.
Bye.